Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I want to let you know that as we go into this episode, there is some very strong language that is used based on the subject matter that we decided to cover today. I want to let you know that if you have young children around, or if you are otherwise opposed to strong language, and by strong language, I do mean cuss words. If these are words that bother you in any way, this may be a podcast that you want to skip. If you are trying to guard your ears in a certain type of way, this may not be the pod for you. You have been warned. If you go any further, enjoy.
Let's go! Welcome to the basement. Yo, it's safer down here, cause that 100 flow will leave you on the pavement. And most of y'all like, wait a minute. The stuff that I be thinking is the stuff that Timmy out here boldly saying. Bow your heads, close your eyes, say a prayer. God got purpose for your life, stay prepared. We went viral and we didn't know who cared. Shout out to all of y'all that clicked subscribe and shared. Hey, we are on our way. Deathbed confessions, this is all I'll say. Like my last $10, this is all I'll pay. The basement's all inclusive, this and all I'll stay. Believers, church hurt, atheists, agnostics, deconstructionists, and whatever your other optics. Press B and let's see what can be when we ask the Holy Spirit to come between you and me. What's up, Tomies? I'm on the set of Tome and I'm so excited. Finally! Y'all been asking for it and we couldn't wait to give it to you. Upset the Vows is a course that Juliet and I will walk you through to get you some tips, some tools, some resources so that you and your spouse can be closer than you've ever been before. I am so excited that you are getting this content. I am so excited that you have the opportunity to grow in your relationship with your spouse. Allow us to take you on the journey based on the 24 years and counting of our marriage.
I stayed with you.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
And help you make it through wherever yours may be right now. Don't give up, don't quit, don't become part of the statistic. You have a 100% successful chance at a great marriage if you don't quit. Y'all giving away me and Juliet's juiciest stuff for the price of one course? 6 courses for the price of one. And so if you could not afford course by course by course, you better get in now. Go to tomeapp.com/vows. I love you guys so much. Let's jump into the pod. Welcome to the basement, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Tim Ross. I love you guys so much, and I'm so grateful that you are rocking with us today. Shout out to my press Bs, shout out to my dwellers, shout out to my promoters on YouTube. Shout out to those Cash App, PayPal, y'all are some generous people. I don't know if you're laundering money through us or whatever, but thank you guys. I really, really appreciate you. From $1 to 1,000 and more, you guys are, you literally are supporting this content. That's why we're here today. We are live at the Maker's Gym in Frisco, Texas. I'm telling you, this is our second pod that we've done here. And if you haven't been to Maker's Gym and you live in the DFW Metroplex, this is literally a one-stop shop for production. You can literally just be a creative, walk in here with an idea, no camera, no director, no producer, no lights, no what else? That's the extent I know about camera equipment. Is there like a dolly?
And just to clarify, we're not live, so don't put questions in the chat, please.
Yeah. Obviously, we're live doing this, but this will be a premiere by the time you see it. So yes, you can. Don't ask the same question 17 times in the live chat. Be like, how come he's not answering my question? Because we're not here by the time you ask your question. I am so excited for today's guest. This may be one of those pods that goes so long, I have to get up and go pee and come back, and like you guys are sitting in like 2.5 minutes of silence, or we'll just let the producers talk to each other along the way.
I was gonna be promoting my Instagram that whole time.
But I have a guest with me that I'm so excited to get to know. His story is compelling. I'm intrigued, and I think you guys are going to be
blessed by him. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am introducing to some and presenting to others the one and only Jamie Kilstein in the house. Let's go!
Hello. Aloha, everybody. Christians are so nice. I didn't know that. I would have come around a lot sooner if I knew how nice you guys were. Everyone's so great.
I'm so grateful, bro. So I want to start from wherever beginning you would like to start, just to give people kind of orientation to who you are and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah.
And then from there, we can like dive off of a platform and do a swan dive into any topic you want to.
Sure. I mean, I think I'll open up just because I'm an artist, so
Yep.
I'm self-hating.
Yeah.
With it was anything good right now, it's a lot of rock bottoms. Like from the jump. You know, when I used to get introduced on podcasts, the introduction would always be like, you know, you've seen this guy on Conan, very funny, Jamie Kilstein. And now the intros are much longer where they're like, this guy's been through a lot. It's shocking he's still alive. Please welcome the very troubled and just walking on an edge, Jamie Kilstein. Follow him on Instagram. I grew up not feeling like I fit in anywhere.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
In Jersey.
In Jersey. Okay. Yeah.
So like we were always sort of the kid. I was always in bands, and we were always just looking across at New York. So we were just sort of like the bitter mall rat Jersey chain smoking.
Yep.
You know, in the 90s,
Yep.
where everything was just completely lawless.
Yep.
That was us.
Yep.
And I was in a band. This is going to be the whitest thing I've ever said. I was in a jam band in the suburbs of New Jersey, and we just like covered Fish songs. We just got high and played like 30-minute improv jams.
I love it.
And
What instrument?
guitar.
Okay, nice.
And so couldn't read any music. I mean, that's been the sort of through line through all of my, like, I can't do the not fun parts. I can do the fun parts.
Got it.
You know, it's shocking Sam didn't have to like readjust this mic. I don't know how to change strings on a guitar. I don't know how to, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years. Pretty sure I'm tying my belt wrong. When kids come up and they're like, can you help me tie your belt? I have to pretend I'm being like a good coach and be like, you should really know. I don't know. We were in this band. I couldn't read any music. Even I played drums in jazz band, but because I couldn't read music, I couldn't afford a drum set. I would just go to lunch, play drums, listen to the song, audition, pretend I'm reading the music.
Wow.
That was sort of like the gist of it.
Yep.
So not really naturally talented, had to just hustle for everything that I got good at. And so, you know, struggling, family life was really hard, 1 of 5 kids. I'm the oldest, but if it shows you how much my parents corrected, it's like, and they got divorced, there was a stepmom. I dropped out of high school, and then by the time they got the youngest, he graduated Harvard. So they like saw me and were like, let's revamp the strategy. And then they kind of, you know,
That's what parents do to all of their kids.
yeah, exactly.
It's
So,
kinda true.
you know, it was just addiction and trauma and depression and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
So I found music and, let me take it back. This is going to be the whitest thing I've ever said. We opened for a band who opened for Blues Traveler, and I was just like, we made it. Let's discuss tour and merch. And I gathered them for like a band meeting, and they were like, we have to go to college, dude. And I was like, but we're the band who opened for Blues Traveler.
Yeah.
And so they left, and I couldn't sing. And like I said, I couldn't read music, so I tried to audition for other bands. It was really hard. And so I liked stand-up, and I'd already been failing out of high school. So even if I didn't drop out, I would have failed out.
Yep.
I did the like, you're not breaking up with me, I'm breaking up with you. I did that with like the education system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I was like, okay, I like stand-up enough. And we were talking about this before, but I think that's where the self-sabotage even started, where it always just seemed like a backup plan, comedy. So I was never, I'm like, well, I love music.
Right.
Comedy is just, I literally started stand-up from abandonment issues. I'm like, well, no one can leave me. It's just me. And so that was it. I started stand-up. I got, this kind of ties into the atheism religious stuff. I started to get really popular under the Bush administration, and mainly overseas, and I was very critical of Bush and the war, and that, up until that point, you know, I was like suburban stoner kid religious, which just means like I would get high and look at the sky and be like, there's something, and like that was it. That was all I had. It was the, you know, spiritual, not religious, that old gag.
Yep.
And then when I started talking about politics on stage and kind of looking more at George Bush, it's like that was my first impression of Jesus was the Bush administration.
Wow.
So it was literally just, we're bombing the wrong country and gay people shouldn't get married. And then they were like, Jesus. And I was like, well, that sucks. I don't like that at all.
Who is this dude?
Yeah. And like, I said this on some conservative show where I was like, if the only person hyping your band is George Bush, I don't care how good your band is. I'm not going to listen to your band. Like, I'm just not.
Yeah.
And so if you remember, it was so closely tied to Christianity. Everything the Bush administration did, it was called Christianity.
Absolutely.
And so I didn't know any other Christians. You know, I knew my mom, who really, really struggled and prayed. We never went to church. My dad was Jewish, never really went to synagogue. We just celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah.
Yep.
And so my impression wasn't great.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, I eventually, so I'm just criticizing Bush, which turns into criticizing church and the hypocrisy, and that's, you know, all the rape with the Catholic Church was happening.
Yeah.
Again, like not the best ads.
Right,
and so now I'm going hard, and I've become like this like liberal anti-religion guy, but I still, you know, believed in something, and meet my ex-wife. She's like a hardcore atheist. And I just didn't know enough to, you know, because I always called myself agnostic.
Yep.
And then my wife and all of our friends in New York, kind of like the liberal, like intelligentsia class, they were all pretty much atheists. And I have, no matter how many cool things I do with very famous like intellectuals or whatever, I always feel like the high school dropout. I'm like, oh, I just make jokes and that's why these guys like me, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So imposter syndrome. And so finally I was like, all right, yeah, I guess I'm an atheist. Then I start getting booked at these big like atheist gigs, like played the Global Atheist Convention in Australia. Yeah, open for Richard Dawkins.
I didn't know there was a thing.
I didn't know either. Yeah, but I was just also broke, and I was like, "You're gonna fly me to where?" Yeah, all right,
We're coming.
Let's go atheism.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna cut that out as the soundbite for this show because it's definitely the first time it's been said. And yeah, I mean, me and Reggie Watts performed with Christopher Hitchens at the Sydney Opera House.
Wow,
like that was like right because it was the new atheist movement too.
Yep.
So I'm criticizing Bush, and then suddenly, you know, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, they all become bestsellers with books that are just like, I don't like God, or like whatever the titles are.
Yeah.
And so, and it's also like, I feel like I have community for the first time. I feel like, I'm like, oh, there's this like group of people who like me.
Yep.
So then what happens is Trayvon Martin gets killed. And the same week Trayvon Martin gets killed, there's the biggest gathering of atheists that have ever happened. It's on the Mall in Washington.
Okay.
And it's like me, Eddie Izzard, the Mythbusters guys, Bad Religion. That was like the first cassette I ever owned. So I'm like, I'm doing this for Bad Religion. Bunch of famous atheists.
Yep.
And it's 30 to 50,000 people. So clearly the biggest audience I've ever played in front of. That's an insane number of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I say yes to the gig. And right around that time, there's this, you know, Richard Dawkins is being called sexist. And I think I knew the woman, and so I defended her. So atheists were starting to get mad at me, and I remember going to my wife and being like, "Why am I doing this? Like, what do I stand for? What do these people stand for? I'm only here because I wanted to defend women and gay people and, you know, Muslims, and I just like that's why I'm here. And it just seems like we are showing up in front of 30,000 people to be like, we're smarter than you, you know what I mean? And just a bunch of buzzkills in a field.
Yeah.
And so I changed my speech. And I wrote this paragraph at the end, and I don't remember it, but I remember crushing in front of 30,000 people, which I've never, it's a very weird feeling. And just opening with easy jokes. I'm making fun of Rick Santorum, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And right before I went on stage, so because it was this huge festival, the backstage was essentially, it was like a music fest. It was like tents that were fenced off. So I wander out and I see, you know, just these like, and you can't judge because there are great atheists out there, but like these smug, I'm walking by all these like very smug looking people who look like me. And then I keep walking and there's a rally for Trayvon. And it's probably 70 people. Yeah. Maybe 60 people. And that's where I felt God. That's where there were candles and there were tears. And it wasn't about, our thing was about us. It was look at us, look at us, look at us. Their thing was about, look at this kid, right? And I was like, I don't want to be here. And I almost like split. I was like, I don't want to do this. So anyway, speech has changed. And I go on stage. I think I might even be reading it from a piece of paper. Hit Santorum, easy, killing. And I ended this speech or rant, again, in front of 30 to 50,000 people by calling out atheists and being like, hey man, I would rather hang out with a Christian. This is a line I do remember. I would rather hang out with a Christian who wants to feed the poor people than an atheist who wants to like complain on Reddit. I don't know. Yeah. And it did pretty well, but there were definitely, I got a lot of heat like the next week. And it's a moment that if I had more courage, I would have looked back on and been like, I probably should investigate why in front of a bunch of atheists. Suddenly I was like, I literally said I would rather hang out with a Christian who wants to feed poor people. And I didn't even know any. Man, maybe it's because I thought that was a thing that didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
I only knew.
Hypothetical.
Yeah. It's like one of these mythical Christians who wants to help poor people. Yep. And yeah, that was kind of it. And, you know, then Cliff Notes, I kind of like blow up as this liberal dude. And then I get into a fight with Joe Rogan about feminism. And then I get labeled this like male feminist guy. And I kind of leave comedy behind because I'm like, those guys don't like me. Again, more abandonment, right? Like comedy doesn't like me. And I told myself it was because I'm, you know, defending women, even though like I was in my 20s and I was depressed and I had anxiety and I was self-righteous. And I thought I was, you know, I thought it was like the new Bill Hicks and George Carlin or whatever. And so then comedy bails on me. Then I am just like struggling in my marriage. And I can't really talk about that too much, but I'm struggling. And I have this affair. I fall in love. I have this 2-year affair. It's horrible. And essentially when I ended it, she like made it public and was like supposed feminist, is a creep. And so then, you know, the left, they get their little marching orders and they're like, he's out. And so in a day, I lost like all my friends, like literally all my fans. There was a dude on Facebook who the day before wrote, I just want you to know you talked me out of suicide. Thank you so much. And then the next day when when that affair came out, he didn't even delete his comment. You know how you can add a comment? He just added a comment.
He put like, a PS up.
He was like, I hope you die. I hate you. It was so crazy. I was like, dude, delete your comment.
You saved my life so I could help you take yours.
Yeah. Now I know why I'm here. It was.
Wow.
It was crazy. But again, at the time, I'm like, well, I deserve it. Because I was in that community too. I was like, yeah, this is what happens. Yep. I deserve it. I'm garbage. I'm a hypocrite. At no point did I give myself. Do you know I didn't know what the word grace meant until I went to church? I had never, if that shows you my old communities, if that gives you I had to my pastor took me out to lunch and I had to ask him, I go, hey, can you like tell me what grace actually means? Because like I know like love, I get that. Yeah. Forgiveness, cool. But like what is, I'd never heard that word before. Like, I mean, I'm sure I've heard it in passing, but like I couldn't have defined it.
Yeah.
I definitely have never used it in a sentence.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And so, you know, I didn't give myself grace that it was like, hey man, like there was a lot of other toxic things in this relationship. There's a lot of sad stuff going on. Like you made a mistake, but like in that world, it's kind of like you make a mistake and then you're done.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought the main reason I took my pastor out to lunch is I was like, do you know I had an affair? And like, I don't know if I'm like allowed to come to church. And he was like, yo, have you read the Bible, dude? Like, there's a lot worse than that.
way worse.
Do you know how happy I was when I found out like some of our heroes? I'm like, they were murderers. I was like, oh, that makes my little affair Facebook Rogan thing nothing. Like,
exactly.
This is great.
Exactly.
So yeah, so then tried to kill myself a bunch, and I had the only opportunity I had was I would get these offers from right-wing people, which now I'm friends with so many conservatives and Christians, and I've been calling myself like a bleeding heart centrist. I'm sort of in the middle.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was they only wanted me to write, to be one of the guys that just, I used to be on the left, and now if I wrote a book called like From Feminist to Freedom Fighter, and it was like me and Andrew Tate holding hands with like an American flag and like a red pill, I'd be a billionaire. And dude, I was broke and I was suicidal and my cat was covered in fleas. My apartment was so gross. You know how hard it is to break a lease in LA?
Yep.
I literally was like, I got to break a lease. And the guy said, just don't tell anyone what you saw here. Which I guess I just did.
That's hilarious.
And it was like, that's how like I went from like rich and, you know, Robin Williams was one of my best friends, all this stuff, to just nothing. And so, yeah, disappeared. And then Rogan had me back on like 3 years ago to kind of be like, hey, what happened to you was stupid. Like, let's be friends again. And at the time, I didn't have social media because in my head, I was like, I'm going to do this for again, every dumb decision in my head was like, oh, this is some moral, like high ground. Yep. I was like, I'm going to prove that like, I just want to be his friend and I don't need social media. Like, we're just going to have a real conversation. And now looking at what happens when people actually go on Rogan Show to promote stuff, I'm like, I am stupid. So I went on that, and then that's it. Now I'm stand-up's going better than ever. I'm writing a lot. Yeah, we can talk about the coming to Jesus thing that happened last year. And my goal is just to, everyone is so divided. It's so insane that I'm just trying to show people that like, hey, you can have beliefs on both sides. You can have friends that vote differently. Most of us, I think, secretly have a lot of gray area beliefs that we don't like to talk about because you have to be just like on the left or on the right or Christian or atheist or whatever. And I'm trying to make that funny. Yeah. And that's what I'm doing.
All right. So I see everything people say. Yeah. So I didn't just hear you. I watched everything you just gave us.
Yeah.
And
what a nightmare.
Hey, there's some beauty in some nightmares, depending on how you walk, depending on what your takeaways are.
Yeah.
So you said something that like I didn't even know I needed to hear.
Okay.
So I found out so I've been a believer in Jesus for 27 years.
Okay.
I've been in some form of counseling and or therapy for 25. Okay. I'm a lifer, right? Yep. I'm so screwed up in the brain. Yep. I was sexually traumatized at 8. Yep. And so I can't go for like 4 months and be like, I'm fixed. Right. You know what I mean? Like, therapy and counseling to me is like wearing a retainer.
Yeah.
If you stop wearing it, your teeth are going to shift.
Yep.
So I can't stop wearing my counseling and my therapy or my whole life is going to shift, right? Yep. So, but what I found out in 2019, it was a huge aha for me, Jamie, was that I had a porn addiction. I was promiscuous. I had done a bunch of stuff, but I had never been able to get down to what is the root of this, right? All this is symptomatic. What is the root? I found out that the root of my trauma was abandonment and attachment. Yeah. Right. And so porn became this perfect cocktail because it feeds you 2 lies at once. Yep. The porn video is always ready for you. You know what I mean? And you can attach to yourself, right? I got my penis in my hand and I'm going to let off my own dopamine. Yeah. It could be a line of coke or it could be an ejaculation. Yeah. I choose ejaculation. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Right.
You mean I get to watch hot naked people have sex and while not facing my problems? I'm in. Yeah.
Right? Let's do it again, right?
Yeah.
So I find out abandonment and attachment is the epicenter of my pain. And when you said I had abandonment issues and comedy became, an anchor for me because you can't leave me, right? It's just me by myself. I'm not doing it with a band.
Yep.
I'm not doing it with a team. It's just me. Well, I had comedy before I even had porn, right? So the trauma that happened at 8 happens, and it's 12 that I got exposed to porn. Between 8 and 12, I become the funny guy at school.
Yep.
Because I'm gonna if I can keep you laughing, you can't like squint and be like, what the hell is wrong with Tim? Like,
Yeah, bro, my job is a coping mechanism, right? Like, how screwed up is that?
Exactly correct.
And so many times that I've quit was to try to get healthier, because when I go on, if I went up on stage and was like, man, you know what's really been helpful? Jesus and meditation. Good night. Everyone would be like, boo, boo. Like, but when I get up on stage and I have, a bit about, like, if a girl wants to get off, like, date a sad, needy guy, and it's about how, like, I'm not going to stop because, like, I need validation, and, like, I won't quit going down in Utah. I'm convinced my dad loves me, and everyone's cheering and they love it. And if I talk about addiction, if I talk about, when people are like, who's drinking tonight? Everyone's just screaming, and you're literally getting you're getting affirmation for your worst qualities.
Wow.
It is the opposite of positive self-talk.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do now is frame it in a way where it makes people feel not alone. So my porn addiction bit, if you actually like look into it, it's actually like an anti-porn bit. But to get there,
right,
it is just porn joke after porn joke after porn joke. But there's an underlying message, and it's filthy. Like, I could never say it in a church. I would be arrested. It's so bad. It's so graphic. And at no point is it like you guys are bad if you watch porn, but so I'm trying to kind of couch the material now, but before then, it was just, most comics, when you watch most comics are talking about getting drunk, hooking up, watching porn, abortions. Like, I mean, it is, and again, being able to laugh at that stuff is good, right? Like, comedy comes from trauma. I mean, this is where you're going. Comedy comes from trauma. I remember when people used to be like, when they would interview me and they were like, were you the class clown? And I'm like, are you out of your mind? The class clown beat the shit out of me and like called me gay. No, I was the sad kid with the journal, like talking about his feelings and watching, The Simpsons, which is where I learned about humor, which always had like a sweetness to it too. But a lot of times, I mean, it was me and my brothers trying to make each other laugh. Like, my first, when did you want to do comedy? It wasn't, when I saw Richard Pryor for the first time. It was my mom being taken away by an ambulance and me and my brother standing in my room, me being the oldest, not knowing what to do. And the first person who made a joke, which it's going to be wildly offensive just given the circumstances. It's going to be about my mom. And we all started laughing. And once you can laugh, then you can go, okay, now what do we do? Right? You can battle plan. It's like that icebreaker. So anyway, yes, I relate to this so hard. So you were saying you were 8 to 12, before porn, you find comedy, you're getting laughs suddenly.
Yeah, I'm getting laughs to deal with trauma. Right? But I never, until you just said what you said, I never thought about the connection to abandonment. The laugh won't leave me. Like, the family, the reason why I didn't tell the family is because my dad was going to kill the guy. Right? Not because don't tell anybody or I'll kill you. No, if I tell, you're dead. Right? My dad's going to kill you. My brother's going to bury you. My mom's going to be brokenhearted for the rest of her life. So comedy gets infused into my life, and I just start, the way I deal with really stressful, traumatic situations is I gotta make a joke. I gotta break this. When Juliet's been pregnant 5 times. My wife's been pregnant 5 times. We have 2 boys. So we lost 3. And the first one, she just came off birth control to surprise me. I had baby fever for like 2 years.
Yeah.
She wasn't ready to have kids. I was traveling too much. I didn't even know they were terriers at the time. I just was like, can I get a Paris Hilton dog?
Yeah.
Whatever that
Yes.
hypoallergenic dog is, give me one of those.
Yeah.
She was like, dude, you travel, I'm going to be taking care of the dog.
Right.
So no, you can't have a dog.
You're like, if Paris can do it, right. I think you'll be fine.
I think we can do it too, right? So she surprises me, comes off birth control.
Yeah.
Her body's changing, but it's changing in all the right places. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what you eating, but keep eating that. Popeye's being good to you, girl.
Yep.
Have another biscuit. So she's just over the 3-month mark, and she surprises me. We tell our closest friends. We rent out some suite or whatever. And then there's no heartbeat the next time we go for our next checkup.
Yeah.
And the baby doesn't come out on its own, so we have to have a DNC. It's tragic, right? So we're sitting, we got to go to therapy. We name the child, we release a balloon, and we're going through all of that. And then we're sitting in the house one day, unsolicited, unprovoked. I'm like, I'm glad we lost that baby. And she's like, what? You know what I mean? I'm like, this freaking baby only had one job.
Right.
Like, this is the easiest part of this child's entire life.
Coasting.
Just chill in the womb. You're never going to have an easier time as a human being than the 9 months you're in your mom's womb. And this is when this fool quits? Yeah. Imagine if we would have had this child. This has been the biggest effing quitter in life. We don't do quitters in this family. I'm glad he's gone. And she burst into laughter.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be married to the right chick, right? Yeah. She burst into laughter. And then we were okay.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
We were okay.
And there's a difference between, that's the whole thing with the, punching down argument in comedy, is there's a difference between being a bully and being honest, right?
Facts.
Like, there are people who, they can use comedy to be, if you're just being hateful, if you're just attacking an oppressed minority, and there's nothing behind it, right? It's very different than talking about things that are offensive, but drawing parallels or doing it in a subversive way where you're actually kind of attacking, even though you're talking about stereotypes or whatever, you're actually kind of attacking how silly the bigotry is, right. Or, you're attacking yourself. Like there are so many ways to do it. And again, everybody is on a text thread that will get them canceled. I don't care who you are, right?
For sure.
Like, dude,
That's a great statement.
Well, it's true. Like, my brothers are the most progressive, getting people out who were wrongfully put on death row. They are our text threads. Hate speech. It's so bad because we're just trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know each other's hearts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Comedy can be, with great power comes great responsibility. It can be used as a tool to bring people together.
Yep.
Or if you want, it could be used to divide, because a lot of people became funny through trauma, and now maybe they're using it. For me, it was the only way I could get girls, right? Like, suddenly there's this thing where girls are paying attention to me, and I'm 5'7". I was never jacked. I was a really good friend to lots of girls, but humor, suddenly you're on stage and you're being funny, and it's giving me confidence. Suddenly it's like, oh man, girls are talking to me now. So if you want, you can use that sort of nerd rage where now you're funny and you kind of feel superior a little bit because you're an intellectual, because you have to be smart to be funny. Yeah. And so you can use that against people if you want.
Yeah, it's very true.
Or you can use this to try to bring people together and show them that, like, hey man, like, we're all dealing with the same trauma. Yeah. There are people who are on Twitter, and I used to do this, spending all day yelling at people who disagree with them. And it's like, if you told one of my old liberal friends, hey man, like, there are Republicans who get depression, right? They'd be like, what? Because we're so not used to seeing them as human.
Correct.
Right? Or you tell a Republican, like, hey, like, there are liberals who also got back from the war and are suicidal because they have PTSD. And they're
Yeah.
like, what? And there's so much that does bring us together.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all being screwed over by the same people.
Yeah.
You know, Republicans and Democrats in office are not our best crop, right?
Agreed.
But that doesn't mean that the people they represent are bad.
Correct.
The people they represent, for the most part, are trying, and because they were raised in a certain part of the country,
Yep.
they just go, well, this is the right,
Absolutely.
this is the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I literally never knew that until I get booted out of my old friend group. And again, I didn't make the turn where I'm like, now I'm conservative. I had this moment. I remember I had this moment where I got that like book deal offer like 10 years ago, and I'm in the Flea apartment, and I go, you know, maybe I am conservative. Like, I'm just going to look up some conservatives. And I remember being like, you know, I heard that Ben Shapiro is like a really like smart guy. I'm just going to like Google him, YouTube him, and I'm like, I'm not conservative. Like, I'm not that kind of conservative.
Right, exactly.
And but then I moved to Texas. I moved to Austin, and I meet this guy. Do you know this guy, Tim Kennedy?
No.
So Tim's a Christian, special forces, was a UFC fighter.
Awesome.
I mean, still a Green Beret. You know, has like 1 million followers on Instagram. And if you look at all of his stories, you go, man, this guy's super conservative. Like, I had to unfollow him a couple times. I've told him this.
Yeah.
And he comes on my podcast, and we're talking about,
I'm looking him up.
yeah, we're talking about shame. We're talking about past mistakes. We're talking about my affair. He uses the word grace. We talk about, he even says, I mean, this is a dude who has 1 million conservative followers. He goes on my podcast and he said, you know, if I ever heard someone at my church saying something about a gay person, like, me and that person are having a conversation. And, you know, that's not going to gain him any new fans.
Yeah, for sure.
What a ballsy thing to say. And we talk about God. It's the first time I kind of talked about God on my podcast, and I was very new into it. And what I realized is that if I look up to this guy and everyone who works for him at Sheepdog Response, if I look up to them as men, right? If I look up to the way I see him be a parent, I see him be a friend, I see him be a teacher, maybe I should ask him some questions about politics instead of just being like, you're a whatever caricature I have of a Republican.
Right.
And so it wasn't that I wanted to switch teams. It was that 10 years later, for the first time, I met really cool conservatives.
Yeah.
And then I just started talking to them.
Yeah.
And I go, ooh, I do agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. Still disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
And then I can do the same. I can go back to, you know, my liberal friends and be like, hey, I learned this thing from a conservative. What do you think about that? And they're like, well, I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with that. And you just go, guys, if we talked, we all like, we want the same thing.
For sure.
No one actually wants, no normal person, you know, tyranny, or they want cruelty. Like, most people are just scared.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do, and they want to protect their family, and they want what's best for them. And this other side has been demonized because all of us have this vacant, you know, God-shaped hole in our heart. And so we're just like trying to fill it with money or with, you know, self-righteous or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Validation, dopamine, blah, blah, blah. And we just don't give the other side another chance because we're like, hey, we're told you're, that was me with Christians.
Yeah. Yep.
It was literally, I thought that Christians were just the most judgmental, cruel, just shame. That I just assumed church meetings were just like, oh, how are we going to get the gays? And everyone's just eating Chick-fil-A. And they're like, ha, ha, ha. Like, I had no idea, bro. I had no idea that these are like the kindest. And again, I'm very lucky. I walked into a great church. I know a lot of people have church hurt. I've heard terrible stories. My ex has an awful story that, like, it's bad.
Yeah.
But man, it's so wild to go into a space that you used to demonize, and for the first time in my life, talking about abandonment issues, I feel like I have people who have my back.
Yeah.
Not because I can get them on TV.
Yep.
Not because I'm going to promote them on Instagram. Not who would leave if I screw up.
Yep.
But people who would also not who would just blindly support me.
Yep.
Like a lot of like the celebrities I hung out with in LA, I would see how their friends treat them. I mean, people who will hold me accountable to be the best man I can be. And then if I screw up, have my back.
Yep.
Never had that in my life.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. In a relationship, ever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, I started going to church and I'm like, oh, this is what people can be like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like years of toxic relationships and you meet the right girl and you go, oh, this is what it can be.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, so I got a couple of things running through my mind based on what you just shared. The first one is, and I've always held this sentiment, it is very hard to hate up close.
Yes. Yes.
Proximity eats away at hatred.
Yep.
Because the further you are away from somebody, they can be objectified.
That's it.
The closer they come, they're personified.
Yep.
And the moment they're personified, you're like, well, I have, as a black man in this country, I have been around the white people who still think there are niggers, but I have a pass.
Right. Right.
What changed? Proximity.
Yeah.
You're not like,
Yes.
you're not those niggers.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still hate niggers,
Right,
but
right,
Tim,
right. Yeah.
what happened? You'd probably love those people too.
Yeah.
They're just too far away
Right.
to be personified, so you objectified them.
Yeah.
So Republicans far away are objectified. Democrats far away are objectified. Gay people far away is just, there's a penis going into an anus.
Right.
What? And there's still testicles down here.
What do they do with the testicles?
It's you get close and humanity comes back.
So what do you think it is that drives people to, okay, so me and you have had these experiences where we meet people who should hate us or we should hate or whatever, and we get along. You would think that, the racists who are still friends with you, instead of being like, well, you're not like them, we're still going to demonize them. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to go, oh, well, if you're really cool, maybe they're really cool too. And again, in theory, that makes all of our lives better.
Way better.
It's not like it's a harder, you tell me a group of people that I didn't like are actually dope and they want to be my friend. What is bad about that?
Exactly.
I should be nothing but thrilled.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think it is where it's like we still have to have an enemy? Like instead of using you as an example for good,
Yep.
you had to be an exception.
Right, exactly, which is asinine, right?
Yeah.
I've said this on another pod, Jamie, that America is the most sophisticated country in the entire world at simultaneously telling you who you are and who you are not.
That's it.
At the exact same time.
Right.
They're anything that approaches equality, there is a incredibly subversive, surreptitious plot to make sure unity cannot happen there.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so from the freaking job application that you fill out to the class you sit in on the plane to the college campus that you attend to the zip code that you live in, everything is simultaneously telling you you are something and you are not something.
Right. Well, and this is why, Sam and I were talking about last night about the way you guys are reaching people, the way I'm trying to reach people. And the frustrating thing is it's hard at the jump, right?
For sure.
Because you don't fit into a box.
Right.
Like I said, if I was
Right.
like former liberal who now hates liberals, super, you're in this box.
That's right.
Easy. Here's your
right.
show on the Daily Wire. You're
Yep.
set. You and Ben Shapiro are going to co-host, right?
Right.
If you, the fact that you don't talk down to people, right? Like you had that comic spirit. I'm Hawaiian, even though I look like a colonizer. Aloha spirit's very real, right?
I love it. Aloha spirit is very real.
So you have that, right? So that's what spoke to me is you didn't seem like a pastor who was trying to talk down to people. I was like, oh, this is a guy who's my friend who's breaking down really complicated things that I desperately want to understand in the Bible, and I don't. And so I was like, heard, right? Like, this is good. But you don't fit in a box either, because you're going to offend certain people. And they're going to go, well, why aren't you doing it my way? Right. Or when I go on a right-wing show, my old liberal fans go, why are you going on Glenn Beck's show? I go, I'll tell you, because I'm in front of millions of people right now. And on Glenn Beck's show, I have defended Palestine. I have defended black people. And both me and him have talked about Jesus. And I've criticized the left, and he's criticized the right. To me, that seems much more important than going on another left-wing show, circle jerking. So we're like, oh, we feel so good about ourselves. And then nothing gets accomplished.
That's exactly right.
And then to everyone listening who doesn't have a platform like we do, I'll say the same thing for people who are depressed, people who are suicidal. The people that I meet who struggle the most are the people I want to hang out with the most.
Yeah.
It's never, not saying this is good, but it's never just like, that asshole who cuts everyone off in traffic, and the tall dude who drunkenly stands in the front row of the concert screaming "Free Bird," or the woman abuser. Like, those guys, they're gonna live forever. They're eating vegan. They're going to chirotherapy, ice baths, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The people that I talk to who want to leave are the ones who feel the hardest. Yep. They're empathetic. They're emotional. They feel like they don't fit in, which is they see as a bad thing.
Yep.
And I just beg them to see that it is a beautiful thing. It is the only thing. Yep. It means you're doing life right. And so for people listening, if you're listening to the show, if you like this show because there isn't anything like it, there's nothing like you. You're the same, right? And you just want to beg those people to just keep pushing through. And I'm saying this to myself too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because the things that are the hardest for me right now in my career, in my whatever, is that I don't fit in.
Yep.
Is that I'm not, the past is too checkered. My language is too bad to suddenly be like the Christian guy. Yep. But now I'm weirding out some people by being Christian-y in this very secular stand-up world.
Yeah.
And you just go, again, at your worst, you go, I don't belong anywhere.
Yep.
And at your best, you go, I represent a lot of people who don't belong anywhere.
Absolutely correct.
And when I find those people,
Yep.
I'm going to be able to do so much more good than if I was just preaching to the choir, which is what I used to do.
Yeah.
Very lucrative, but the choir bails on you when things get hard.
Absolutely. And the choir's never going to leave the church, which means they're in.
Right.
And I think we're supposed to go fishing. Right. I thought that was the commandment, right?
Yeah.
Matthew 28 is like, go make disciples of all nations.
Right.
Well, if they're already in the church, I think they're safe.
Right.
Why would I be in the dugout?
Yeah.
I need to go hit the ball and run some more people around the bases and get them home.
Well, to feel good about yourself, because those people are going to clap and agree with you.
Yeah.
With whatever you say. And going out is harder.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's going to be a lot harder. When I thought this would be too like esoteric, but I wanted to do a joke about this where before I came to Jesus, I wanted to do a joke about like, hey, have you ever been so depressed that friends start giving you their Bibles? Because 2 people gave me their Bibles in the same week and I didn't even know they were Christian. And they were like, I need you to, like, they didn't buy me a Bible. They were like, this is my Bible, which I didn't know anything back then. I'm like, well, you need that to get into heaven. Like, I don't know how it works. Yeah. And so they gave me their Bible. And
it's like giving away their Willy Wonka ticket. Why are you letting me into the chocolate factory?
And so both of these guys, they were. I met with them both when I was suicidal. One of them was a jiu-jitsu coach of mine, and we talked about faith a little bit.
Yeah,
but. I just remember at some point he goes, I just happen to be a follower of Jesus. That was the only thing he said about Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so cut to however many months later when I come to Jesus and I tell him and he's so excited. And he goes, man, I wish I was a better what's the word for witness? Is that the right word?
Yeah, witness. Yeah.
He's like, I wish I was a better witness for you. Like, which I think he meant like, I wish I got you to it sooner.
Yep.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
What you did is the reason, because when I came to it on my own, I looked back and I go, who do I know that's Christian? Brian.
Yeah.
And I just go, I've just always admired that guy from afar, how he holds himself in the world.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm like tiptoeing on the door of Jesus, I go, hey, can I ask you questions now?
Yeah.
But if at my lowest, I was suicidal, I was an atheist, all this stuff, and he was like, hey, what's going to help you? A little guy by the name of Jesus Christ. I'd be like, get out of here.
Right.
I don't want to talk about this right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I'm scared. I don't know. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Because I don't know how it works. I don't know anything about church.
Absolutely.
But being able to look back, and it's like, all that guy had to do was be a cool. And I'm not telling your listeners like be lazy.
No, for sure.
But and don't try.
Yeah.
But he did. He said just enough that I knew.
Yep.
And then he was just a hell of an ambassador.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so that you saying that word resonates with me big time, because the church that we planted and that I pastored for 7 years was called Embassy City.
Whoa.
And the entire blueprint of the church was to teach people how to be ambassadors of Jesus Christ, right?
That's it.
And ambassadors do significantly different things than politicians, right? Like politicians run against the other party and their own, right? They come up with their own opinions and policies. Ambassadors don't get to do that. Whoever the president is, they can only repeat that administration's policies, procedures, decrees, whatever. Well, we come from a kingdom where we can only repeat what's already been put in the book, right? But ambassadors are the reason why there hasn't been World War III. Not politicians.
Right.
Politicians will put the sequence quote in right now and be like, screw you, Russia, boom, right? Like, Russia would love to end the West.
Yeah. I feel like everybody in like a president's cabinet is just constantly holding them back from World War III. Just like, don't do it. Don't do it. He's like, I'm going to do it today.
There's a nuclear winter coming.
Yes.
If these dudes get into a pissing contest, right?
That's it.
It's the ambassadors behind the scenes that you never see, legs crossed with some tea in their hand, talking to a country that wants to completely erase them, saying,
it's a lot of
bro.
hidden meaning.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, hey, dude,
Yeah.
we'll lift this sanction. We'll give you back your prisoner of war. Let's just not push the nuke button, right? And everybody's like, okay, we still hate you, but whatever.
Yeah.
Ambassadors, if we just take up that space, make ourselves known without pushing people away, it's how you got in.
Well, and it's how I got in, and it's how, a lot of people, my church is so good at making us all feel loved and welcome. I'm so lucky I walked in. So they're called Red Rocks. They were founded in Denver, but there's a big one in Austin. And the first thing they say, especially I walk in like they're immediately just going to be like out. Like I'm so scared.
Yep.
I'm so nervous. I've never told this story, not even on my podcast. I almost didn't go in. I go to the first service, and my friend and his wife are waiting for me, and I'm sitting in the car, and I have like sex worker friends in Austin, and I was like, I could go like have sex with one of my friends right now. At 8:30, I'm in the parking lot of a church for the first time. And I'm not like, hey, I could go to breakfast and come back at 10:30. I go right to, what if I go have sex with one of my escort buddies?
Right.
Like, I think she lives around. You know what? I'm just going to go do that. And I I was like shaking, dude. Turned the ignition, like went to go, and then got a text, and my buddy Sam was like, hey, I'm walking out right now. And I was just like, And walked in. And the first thing that my pastors say, because again, I'm on high alert for bullshit, right? And the first thing my pastors say is they say, if you're new around here, we're just a bunch of imperfect people pursuing a perfect God. All churches are imperfect people. We just like to brag about it.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Right? And I just immediately, all of the shame, all of the we're better than you, I was just like, what the is this?
Wow.
This exists?
Yeah.
And I was in.
Yeah.
From that. And then at the end, the other, big tithing, that's another thing people get super weird about.
Yeah.
They say, here's the app, here's the code.
Yeah.
If you don't want to give to us, here are other churches that are dope. You can give to them. And then they go, there's cash in the back. If you want to leave, there's a basket. If you need money, if you need a meal, take cash from the back. And same deal. I was like, what the is this? I'd never heard that either.
Holy cow.
And
amazing.
I was just like, and then I walked up to, now he's my friend, Ethan, one of the pastors, and I go, I don't know anything. Dude, I must have mumbled like so many weird words. Like, Robin Williams was my friend, he died, and I opened for Richard Dawkins, and I had an affair. Well, how do you read the Bible? And he just was like, all right, bud. Like, just walked me like a scared dog over to like the free gift section of the church, and he just handed me like a Bible. And I was like, thank you, bye. And like an insane person.
Going to go have sex now. That was a lot. I need a blowjob.
I'll leave the Bible in the car for that. Yeah, it was insane, man. But also if I didn't find that church,
yep,
I don't know if I'd be here.
Yeah.
Also like the worship band rips. And even that, I didn't know how to do it properly. I went up to one of the girls who's a really good friend of mine now, and I was just like, man, you guys killed it. Oh, wait, I don't know if for Jesus. You killed it for Jesus.
Who did we kill?
You rip. Yeah.
You killed my flesh. I think my flesh is dead.
Yeah, it was so much. But again, like, that's how you do it.
Yeah, man.
That's how you make people who didn't grow up in the church or who left the church because they were let down.
Yep.
That's how you make them feel welcome, is you just be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Just be honest, and you follow Jesus, and you go, hey, we're all messed up, and we're all trying our best.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, dude, what's the name of the church again?
So Red Rocks. So Red Rocks, Austin. I've never been to the flagship, but oh my God. And also their worship band, they just released a new song on Friday called Good Plans. It's made me cry so many times. It's on repeat. Music was, if the pastors weren't so cool, what I realized too is I think everyone has different God love languages.
For sure. Oh, absolutely.
Right? So like music was mine.
Yep.
Where when he was talking at first and I was like, this is weird. I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
And then the band kicks in.
Yep.
And I just go, oh,
yeah.
Okay, that was that love language.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
Me.
For sure.
Like I was like, okay, music will reset me.
Yes, sir.
And then I can go listen to the sermons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, praise and worship is, first of all, during the weekend service, it's 50% of the service.
Yeah.
If it sucks.
Yeah.
Some people are in the parking lot and they're like,
yep,
I'm just going to finish this latte.
Yeah, yep.
And walk in during song 4.
Nope, our band's
last
so good.
verse.
Yep. and I'm the opposite. I'm like, do the bridge again.
Exactly, right? Yeah. It's very, very important. Mm-hmm. I got to read this. It's not a Bible verse. It's actually a note that I have stuck in to John chapter number 1. My mentor wrote this. Okay. And it just resonated with me. I can't take it out of here. Like, this dude hand wrote this, and like, what I love the most about it is that this little notebook, whatever this is, with these little, he wrote it in the notebook, opened the notebook, and like peeled it out to hand it to me. It wasn't like already peeled out. There's no crease in it.
Yeah.
Like, I just stuck it right in my, but this is my encouragement for like this podcast.
Yeah.
Because, dude, I was in ministry for 27 years. I preached my first sermon 5 weeks after I got saved. Ooh. Never has there been a more predictable life than the one I've had for the last 27 years.
Right.
Get a sermon, make it applicable to humanity. Yeah. I always preach to the back row and work my way forward.
Love that.
Because the first 4 rows are already saved. They're actually critiquing your sermon. Like,
right.
Let me see if this fool actually knows what he's talking about. I don't even preach to them. I'm preaching to the back row. The 14-year-old is like scrolling, Snapchat.
By the way, this is how I knew we were going to be friends, is the same thing. I got baptized and I was just like, time to become a preacher. Like, there was no part of me that was like, let me dip my toes into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I was just like, all right, what do I do now?
Yeah, no, dude. Yep. I literally.
That's amazing.
It was the hardest pivot ever. So I've been preaching for 27 years and in ministry, and it's it's wildly comfortable and predictable. I'm a creature of habit, right? I'm an introvert. My wife can make 3 phone calls and find me. I'm a predictable creature. And then he says, do a podcast, right? What kind of podcast is it? What shows up on the top 10 Christian podcasts on iTunes and Spotify? He's like, this is not a Christian podcast. Like, it's a podcast for everybody.
Yes.
You just happen to be Christian.
Yes.
Okay, Jesus. And then I'm like saying stuff and it's pissing off the people that love me as a preacher and they hate me as a podcaster. And I'm like, well, who am I supposed to be? Right. And then
I relate to this so hard.
Right. And then some days I'm so passionate I want to cuss, and then I do. And then they're like, I've stumbled over your life and busted my lip, and now I don't have faith in Jesus anymore. I'm like, no, lose faith in me. Please don't lose faith in Jesus, but you might not like me no more. Then he writes this, and he's such a dope dude that he puts it in 2 different pens. Right? Yeah. He has red, but the top of it is...
I'm still picturing the old fan of yours at the gates of heaven and being like, I can't come in. Why? Tim Curse on episode 9.
And I haven't been the same since, right? It's like Jesus sitting up there like, did he die for you? Like, what? Did I miss something? Did he shed a drop of blood for you? So
here's the columns.
So he has these little columns, and he's a Message Bible guy. He loves the Message Bible, right? So he just writes this little portion. St. John 1:23 at the top, Message. Voice of one crying in the wilderness. I'm thunder in the desert is what the Message says. Instead of voice crying in the wilderness, I am thunder in the desert, right? So then he writes, I don't know why I've turned this into like a read along. Like, then
the little bouncy ball comes over the words.
Exactly, right? So John the Baptist was outside the culture of his day.
Ooh.
Message was different, dress was different, diet was different, audience was different. And he goes, dude, you're John the Baptist.
Right.
So, like, you sit down as a podcaster, your audience is different than when you stand up to preach. And you have to just fall in love with your assignment. And if you need to like mourn and grieve the audience that doesn't like you anymore, go cry a river if you need to. But keep your focus on the audience that he's bringing you, because that's your assignment.
Dude, I want to take a picture of that because I mean, that's exactly what I said. That's the crap I get if I go on a right-wing show.
Yeah.
And I go, but I'm trying to bring everyone together. And again, if we just, me and you both, we know how to talk. We could be very successful, and we could be successful in advertising.
Absolutely,
if we wanted to.
Absolutely,
you know
correct.
what I mean?
Absolutely
we
correct.
Would kill ourselves, but
we would be madmen.
We
would go mad.
Yes. But we would have a very expensive funeral because we'd be rich.
Very true. I'd have a whole marching band.
So, we know how to do it. And it's bizarre because when you try to reason with like a Twitter commenter, it's very futile. But
very.
I just, back in the day when I was self-righteous and yelling at everyone from the left, I felt the same way when I was an atheist. When I was an atheist, I had to debate everyone. And the reason was I didn't believe it. So I would have to memorize these talking points. It's so funny. Whenever someone does want to debate me, which is very rare, but I got like a couple pretty mean emails when I posted about my baptism. And they were like quoting the same old ass Richard Dawkins quotes that I quoted.
Wow.
And I was just remembering thinking like, oh, sweet baby. Like, you read the same book that I read, and you memorized the same well, we're all atheists. Do you believe in Zeus? Like, I remember all those too, honey. I remember all of those lines. And I remember how angry I was and how I felt literally nothing in my soul. And I was just repeating words, like you repeat words when you're fighting with someone who disagrees with you. Just trying to get your talking point out. And ever since finding Jesus, I don't need to debate anyone. It is wild because I feel it in my body. I feel it every second of the day. I can't quote scripture, but I can't not feel how I feel. That I don't feel alone. Like it is so indescribable. And when something is real like that, I don't need to debate to convince someone that my heart beats.
That's correct.
I don't need to quote, a heart doctor to prove, well, if you read, nope, it's just beaten, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then you can focus on, again, well, how can you be the best ambassador? And the way to do it isn't to be the Christian moderate version of who I was on the left.
Correct.
Right? The way to do it is just to be, I did Dr. Drew's podcast, and I don't know where he is spiritually, but it ended with him being like, you inspired me to start praying.
Wow.
And I don't even know how Jesus came up.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about getting the hate on Twitter, and I talked about praying for those people because, man, like their lives must be like really hard. And I went on Adam Carolla's show, and he's an atheist, and but I got to talk about Jesus just because it was either him or Drew who was like, man, when did you become like a good person? And I the way I phrased it, I said basic Jesus shit. Right now, could I go on a podcast, or could I start a Christian podcast called Basic Jesus Shit? It would probably make people mad, but at the same time, I'm in front of millions of atheists right now.
Absolutely.
And when I go on a conservative show, I get to say more liberal things to conservatives than when I go on a liberal show.
Yeah.
I get to talk about some nuanced conservative things, or I get to talk about Christianity.
Yep.
And it when you're not trying to convince people and you're just being someone that people can go, oh, I want to be like, when you see like a comic you like or a writer you like, you want to watch interviews about their process.
Yeah, for sure.
Why can't you do that as like a person?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. No, I it's so inspirational to hear your journey, because most people, is that my chair doing that? This chair needs WD-40. It's like a haunted chair. It's like screeching. Jeez. Okay, let me find a spot.
It's the same voice I heard in the church parking lot that's like, go get laid. I'm like, get away, devil. Get out of here. Come on, man.
I need to go ahead and listen to this kick-ass band.
I know.
Oh, my God. No, it's very inspirational, Jamie, to hear your process. And I'm so, I identify with your process more than I identify with most church people's process that I just grew up in the church. And it's a great testimony to have, right? Like I'm for people like not having traumatized childhoods, and like I gave my life to Jesus at camp when I was 11, and I've been worshiping him ever since. Sweet.
Oh, what
you
dodged a bullet, bud.
Right? Like may there be a million more testimonies like that. And for the people like us that have gone through some trauma, and for the people that, for lack of a better word, I feel like we're assigned to.
Yeah.
There's a certain way that you have to communicate to a cynical soul.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? Like somebody poisoned with cynicism is not going to perk up when you say, let me tell you about my friend Jesus.
Dude, that's it.
Right?
And also, a lot of this is like religion's fault, where it's like, how can you mess up so bad you make God look bad? You know what I mean? Like, in theory, it should be pretty easy.
Yep.
Where it's like, love everyone, forgive, and they're like, what if instead? You know what I mean? And it's like, oof, you look at some of the stuff the church has done.
Yeah.
And when I started reading about Jesus instead of reading about the church, I go, oh, well, he got mad at them too.
Yeah.
So maybe actually when I was an atheist and I saw some bullshit in the church, maybe I was actually already on the right path.
Right. Absolutely
It's
correct.
just instead of turning to cynicism, like you said, it's like the answer was turning to like Jesus.
Yeah.
And, for me, and I've never told this story. I told it to Sam at dinner last night, but I actually didn't. This is something I'm really proud of, and I don't know if I should be proud of it, but let me take that back, because I don't want to diminish anyone else's testimony, but I didn't come to Jesus the times I was suicidal. I mean, I was suicidal and homeless this time last year.
Wow.
And now things, it's the best things have ever been. Yeah. Obviously I was suicidal after the affair thing. I'm just really bad at like, I was like Googling and like looking at knots and I'm like, I failed Boy Scouts. I'm not going to I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to be the dude
with a rope
falls
burn
through the nurse. Yeah. And like 2 broken legs, just sadly trying to wheel myself into traffic for the next 15 years. Yes, yes, dude. And, and so I didn't, maybe God helped me without me knowing. I mean, I'm sure. Although actually, do you remember that band Under Oath? They used to be a Christian rock band, but they were like Grammy nominated. So I have this, so I have this music project coming out with my friend Chris, who's in the band Under Oath, and we never met. We just started. I'd send him spoken word stuff over COVID, and he would like orchestrate music behind it. And yeah, we never.
You did spoken word?
Yeah,
sweet.
Yeah. And so we never met.
That's awesome.
Actually, the first thing I wrote was about finding God, but this is before I went to church. It was finding God through like mushrooms and music and nature and how religion actually turned me away from it. And Chris, even though he's like a Christian, very Christian, was like, I don't disagree with this, so let's do it. Let's make it a song. But then I got baptized and I was like, hey, we got to change some of those lyrics. And not that it's going to be like Jesus is good, but it's like some of them were pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so when I was suicidal in Austin, very random. We barely knew each other. We just made music together. I remember I called him, and I hadn't cried in years. I've been depressed pretty much every day, but I hadn't cried. And he just goes, hey man, I want you to know, like, if you killed yourself, he goes, me, as in me, Chris, with my kids and my family, would be devastated. And it was so simple. And I broke down wailing. I like crumbled. I like fell on the floor. And so looking back at that was God.
Yes, for sure.
But it wasn't like, I think one of the reasons that I was self-conscious too is, you remember all those stories back in the day, a politician gets caught with a prostitute and suddenly he's writing a book like Coming to Faith or whatever. Now I look back and I go, I could believe it.
Yeah.
Or you could have had a PR team and whatever.
Right.
And I think I was so self-conscious to be that, just like I was self-conscious to be a little more conservative or whatever, that I was just I was like, I messed up, so I'm going to deal with this shame for 10 years, I saw a good comedy buddy of mine the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm glad you like me. And he was like, oh, dude, literally people were like, hey, remember when you cheated on your wife, which is literal murder? Like, and being able to joke about it now, like I still take resposibility and the shame,
sure.
but 10 years in exile is a bit much.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, so it was none of those moments that I was like, well, I'm just going to find God because I'm desperate.
Yep.
It was actually, I was getting, for the first time since the divorce, like really high paying gigs, and they were political and writing. And I remember, I swore that I would never tell this story publicly because it could sound so self-righteous, but I went to the Lincoln Memorial, which I never had been to, and I saw it and I was like, word, thanks Lincoln, left. And my brother called me up and he goes, hey, do you know if you go to the top of the steps, it's super, super faded, so no one ever sees it, but there's a star where MLK gave his I Have a Dream speech. And I was hungry and I had to pee, and that's like me in a nutshell, where it's like, hey, you want to go see history? And I'm like, Mom, I'm kind of peckish. And I was like, all right, fine. And so I ran back, and I go back and I'm looking at the star, and right as I'm looking at it, and it's awe inspiring. It's incredible, obviously.
Yeah.
This little tour group of like 6 people came, and he's explaining, this is where the dream speech had, and this girl points like she saw a ghost. And she goes, that's today. And we realized like it was today.
Wow.
It was the date of the speech.
Wow.
And so the tour guide starts, giving these quotes and whatever. And I'm walking back and I'm debating leaving this gig I have because just, I don't want to be, I'm cool talking about politics and I'm cool going on political shows, but I just don't want to be known as someone who is being divisive still. Yeah. And I think about King, and I think about how, you know, he's kind of been like bastardized in a lot of ways and also like flawed, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, well, he was like a Jesus guy. And so I was like, I think I'm just gonna start reading about Jesus. Like, again, not the church. I'm just gonna start reading about Jesus. And within like a day, I realized I don't want to be a political guy. And I walked away from like a lot of money and just drove back to Austin with no plan, no place to stay. I just felt this like pull to come back to Texas. I got another offer to do a political podcast in New York. And it would be the same thing. It would be just kind of like making fun of, and again, I'll make fun of people who deserve it. But also I was like, I don't want to do that. And so I didn't know what was calling me back to Austin. And the only place I had to stay was this comedian's house who like, it's a party house and I'm trying to be healthy and it didn't feel right. And then that other dude who gave me his Bible, who I'd never been to his home before, was like, hey, I talked to my wife and, you know, you should come stay with us. We have an extra bedroom. Stay in his bedroom. Next week, I go to a place called Red Rocks. Do you want to come to church? And then that was it. And then suddenly all of these big things started happening in my career. And yeah, and that's right. And I'm still in this very confused thing. Like I'm still trying to figure it all out. But it is cool that, you know, the rock bottoms helped me for sure, but also people can come to Jesus just because they're inspired by Jesus.
Yep, for sure.
Because that's what it was. I was just like, I was reading about him like a superhero. That's probably offensive, but and being like, oh, I just want to be like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of like, help me.
Yeah.
And now there are moments where I go, help me.
Yes.
And I've surrendered.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I just was like, I mean, this sounds so weird because it's God, but it was just admiration. Mm-hmm. And I just go, all right, well, even if I'm wrong, and that was also a nice little thing as like a former atheist, I could give myself the caveat even when talking to people before I was sure of like, hey, even if I'm wrong, what's the harm in acting like Jesus?
No harm.
There's none.
Absolutely.
I'm just a better person.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that is you're literally giving people a blueprint as you're talking to, at their comfort level, step in where, like, this is a pool, right? Shallow to deep. Some people do a cannonball straight into the deep.
Yep.
Other people stick their big toe in to see if the temperature is even something they want to put their foot into, right? But there has to be different avenues or entry points into it.
If you push the old woman in the deep end who should have just done the toe thing,
she's dead.
she's dead.
She's absolutely
You're going to prison.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you killed an old lady.
You killed an old lady, and your defense of I was trying to help her to swim is not going to hold up in court.
I was trying to save her.
Exactly. Yeah. So you mentioned King, and Jesus, this chair is. I'm about to murder this chair and stand up. So I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Who's this? It's my best friend. Hold on real quick. Hey, bro. I'm taping a pod right now. Okay, bye. Cause you're my best friend. I just wanted to know you're okay. You're good. Okay, love you. Bye. All right.
Can we also normalize guys telling their friends they love them and saying like, this is my best friend? And I mean, I have to convince my brothers to say I love you back.
Right.
And now every time I leave the jiu-jitsu gym, every desk, every fighter, I'll always love you. Love you. Sometimes it's weird. Sometimes I get super into it.
Yeah.
I would like the men to start doing that. Yeah. I'm throwing that out there.
Yes, sir. I endorse that.
Thank you.
Fully. So I'm in DC like maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
Some really, really wealthy the people that own Hobby Lobby.
Okay, yeah, sure.
The Greens. the Greens are paying for like all these pastors to go to Washington D.C. because they did the Bible Museum out there.
It's so funny. So many things that get referenced on the show. I was like, I protested them as well. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, they're on my list. I have material out there about those guys. Right, exactly. So they took some of their Hobby Lobby money and paid for all these pastors round trip and their wives to go to D.C. to go to the monument, to go to the King Monument, to go to the Bible Museum that they put out there. They put a ton of money into that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so we go down there. They want me to do the devotional on the monument, right? Lincoln to my back.
Sure.
Right? King to my right down there, and the monument in front of us. And they're like, we're just going to stay on the steps and we're going to pray, but we want you to do the devotional. And I'm like, I don't know if you want me to do this devotional. And so they're like, do the devotional. I'm like, okay. So I can't even remember what scripture I was led to, whatever, but I read the scripture and then I said, hey, I think the reason why King's dream hasn't become, I believe that the reason why King's dream has not been realized is because it's been analyzed as a speech instead of received as a prophetic word.
I want to do the thing where you stand up and walk around the room, but also I'm like so buckled in with mics and wires.
Bro, like
man.
I'm like, well, if you, it was a pretty clear word that I believe was from God. I believe King was a prophet to this nation. And so I have a dream. The reason why it still reverberates and we still celebrate him, it's not because it was a famous speech. I believe it was a prophetic word from God that's still like dangling over the nation. Like, are you guys going to do it or not?
Right.
Right.
And we're treating it like it was just a scene out of a movie.
Yeah. Like it was like it's Joe Clark played by Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, the fact that every MLK Day, the FBI, literally the verified FBI account on Twitter can be like, today we honor King. I was like, bitch, the one
you murdered him. You murked this dude.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you have a lot of people on the left trying to discredit King because of alleged affairs.
He was boning white women.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's just say it.
That's a much better way to put it.
Okay.
Then you have people on the right who will use that speech to kind of shout down actual racism.
Correct.
Where they go, hey, but King just wanted us all to come together. It's like, cool, then stop being racist.
Exactly.
And so you have everyone. If it is just seen as a speech,
that's right. You're dissecting it.
Yes.
If it's a prophetic word, we have to obey it.
We have to obey it. That's it.
And so I'm on the monument. I don't know why they picked me. I'm on the monument saying this.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why they picked you.
and
I mean, that's not why they picked you. That's why you were picked.
Yeah. And all of these other pastors are going, what?
And the performer in them is just like, damn it, if I got picked for this, I wouldn't be doing this bullshit. He's blowing his spot.
I just think the significance of, for me, the revelation of that was like, y'all have like, again, so dissected this to pick this apart line by line. This is a command God wants from it. Yeah. It lines up with love thy neighbor as thyself. Like he's trying to. It was eloquent. Yes, it was beautiful. Yes, it was verbose. Yes, it was. It's. What other speeches have a holiday?
Right.
What other speeches are being recited? Besides 77 years ago, right? I think it's like Abe and Malcolm. Yeah. I mean, not Malcolm, Martin.
Yeah.
But I just think if we were to elevate ourselves above and put our little tools down and just go, what if we just said yes to this message? right? Not the soundbite of equality, not Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter, not couple lives matter.
Yep.
Just everybody. You know, it's to your point. Okay, even if you don't believe Jesus is the Messiah sent from God, can you agree that above all other deities, men, philosophers, self-sacrificial love that would make you bleed out is kind of better than Buddhism?
It's kind of badass, right?
It's
harder.
Way harder.
I remember when I was reading about Buddhism over COVID, and I still use some Buddhism analogies sometimes.
Yeah.
When I became Christian, I was like, oh man, being single was like already really hard, and now like I'm not allowed to do this. And I remember Buddhism where I just had to sit still for 15 minutes a day. That fucking ruled, because this is really hard. This is much worse. It's much better, but oh man, like the Buddhism thing. Well, I can go to ayahuasca with a bunch of white podcasters who wear stupid influencer hats, and see God and come back and battle my shadow self and do it on a podcast where I get to interview Joe Rogan. Like, come on, that's the dream. Instead, I have to be Christ-like, and I have to stop and talk to everyone. Like, yeah, man, it's harder, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So I have a question.
Yep.
That I'm feeling my abandonment issues are already kicking in, and I think this actually might help some of your listeners.
Yep.
Because you are the 5 people you surround yourself with, right?
For sure.
That it's so true.
It's
one of the most like truest things I've heard in the self-help world.
Yeah.
And when I am around you, Sam, I'm just my pastors, when I go out to lunch with my pastors, and God's coming up, and not even in a what's the word, like a pastoral way, but like I'm just hanging out. I'm hanging out with Pastor Ryan because he's a writer and I'm a writer.
Yeah.
We're talking about creativity, but because he's Ryan, we're talking about creativity, and a passage in the Bible comes up that he can tell me. And I go, oh, or if I go, hey, I think I'm going to go down this path and it feels really scary. He goes, oh, well, David went down this, and you're just like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And I feel more Christ-like when I'm around those people.
Yeah.
Then I go to like a stand-up show, and I'm like, suddenly like saying horrible things, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna smoke a cigarette, even though I haven't smoked in 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're trying to fit in and do that thing, and it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this chair with you right now, and me and you, we haven't even talked about comedy or spoken word or like your battle rapping day. I opened for Talib Kweli doing spoken word back in the day. Like there's so much cool stuff, right?
Yep.
But it's more this this feeling. So I'm gonna compare you to Robin Williams. I can't remember many things Robin told me. I have a couple stories that are so powerful that I remember it word for word.
Yep.
For the most part, we'd be talking on the phone or backstage, and he'd be talking to me, and I memorized that feeling, which I can't describe.
Yeah.
But I was like, I remember what I felt like when talking to Robin. And I very much feel that with you, where I'm like, there's just this like feeling, there's just this calm feeling. And so my brain immediately goes to, well, I have to go home today. I have to rush to the airport, right?
Yeah.
Again, I have my pastors, I have my church.
Yeah.
I got some good people. Tim, I got good people. But for people listening right now who are either new to faith or don't have a community, or step further, their community fucking hates it. So they're hiding it.
Yeah, for sure.
From them.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Absolutely.
And there's part of them that they're like, man, I know I'm supposed to like make disciples, but like I just don't even want my friends to find out. How am I supposed to influence people, and how I'm a back. What do they, what do you do in the downtime? Because I know a lot of pastors would be like, you read your Bible. I'm like, cool. I still don't get most of it. Exactly. And it just makes me feel like a worse Christian.
Yeah.
Where I wake up and I'm like, first thing I'm going to read my Bible. And I'm just like, what? Like praying I can do in the morning.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm having a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even that I have imposter syndrome. Bro,
Yeah.
like my dad issues are so bad. I have imposter syndrome with God where I'm like, oh, he doesn't want to hear this shit right now. Anyway, so for those people, for me, it's like you have podcasts and stuff, but what are other things you can do to kind of like fill that void?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a great question, Jamie. So let me go back to when I gave my life to Jesus, right?
Yeah,
so this is how Sundays went for me in Southern California. Well, let me tell you about Saturdays first. Saturday into Sunday. So Saturday night, we're going clubbing, right? I'm going to get home between 3 and 5 a.m.
Yep.
I'm going to take a power nap.
Yeah.
Because I still live in my parents' house.
Sure.
And by the way, they're bivocational pastors.
Okay.
My mother works for the LAPD.
Yep.
And my dad works for the U.S. Postal Service, and they pastor a church.
Sure.
Okay. They got us out of the hood, but kept the church there. So we now live 66 miles away from the church they pastor. Because if we would have stayed there, I would have already caught a case because I would have killed somebody.
Of course.
My brother turned on his gang, and then they couldn't find him. They were going to come to us, and I got a 45 and was like the next person that's asked for my brother, I'm blowing their brains out. Because I'm not about to just be looking over so I have environmental trauma on top of sexual trauma.
Yep, of course.
You know what I mean? So even my back to this door is a faith move, right? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, Sam better know the hell's going on in back of me.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And by the way, me here, Sam, when we went out to dinner, I don't have that faith yet. I am always facing the door.
Yeah, right.
I am Jason Bourne, back corner, facing the door.
Yep. Me too.
You're doing the 5 a.m. power naps.
Yep, I'm doing 5 a.m. power naps, and then as a tribute to my parents who work all week and then pastor on the weekends, right? They get 1 day to rest and then 66 miles to go pastor this church. I drive them to church. Okay? So this is January 14th of 1996. I drive them to church. What's supposed to happen on Sunday is me go to church, drop them off, go through Sunday school, go through the worship service, and then either I'm driving down to Venice Beach or my boys are picking me up.
Yep.
We are going to holler at as many girls as we can on Venice Beach, right? And then we're going to take a break. We're going to go to either M&M's, Doolin's, Roscoe's, and M&M's and Doolin's back then. And then around 8 or 9, we start cruising Crenshaw. We're going to cruise Crenshaw to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I'm trying to find a female who wants to have sex the same day I meet her.
Yep.
Right? Same night, right? And then go home, and then we do the week again, right? So this Sunday, it's supposed to be the same thing, right? I come to church, right? Sunday school, and then they start morning worship. I'm sitting on the back row of the church. This is in a banquet room in a bowling alley.
I love that you're sitting in the back row you preach to now. That's why you feel it.
Holy cow.
Right? You're talking to you. Talking to you, man.
I'm talking to me.
Of course you are.
Shnikes.
Yeah.
Snap, dude. Thank you. Oh my God. I mean, oh man, I might be crying in a minute. That's crazy.
I'll tell you, I'm a mess, but I still got still a veteran podcaster and caught that shit.
Oh, dude. So I'm like, okay. There is no sermon being preached. Like this is like the first song of the worship service. And the Holy Spirit says to me as clear as I'm sitting across from you, you're a sinner. And not like, you're a sinner. It was the most matter of fact. It was like saying, oh, you got a pig tattoo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On your left arm. I can see that, right?
Okay.
It was like pointing out. And when he said it was the first time I could see it or even feel it, like, I'm disconnected from God. My parents are pastors. I grew up in church. I never thought about that in my life.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm disconnected from God. So I start crying. This is morning worship. This is a Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
So this could go 3 hours.
Sure.
Okay? so I'm sitting in there. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I need to give my life to Jesus. I need to give my life to Jesus. And I'm like, this service just started. I'm like 3 hours away from Jesus, or like 2.5 hours away from Jesus. Like if I'm waiting for the altar call, right?
Yeah.
All these sermons have to be, all these songs have to be sung, and then there's going to be an offering, and then there might be testimony service, and then there's going to be a sermon, and then there's going to be an altar call. I might be 2.5 hours from salvation, and I know I'm disconnected from God right now. I cannot wait that long. So I'm sitting there, and in the cartoons, you got an angel on one side and a demon on another.
Yeah.
I have 2 demons.
Yeah, sure.
And the 2 demons are like, you ain't doing this today.
Yeah.
Don't even try it. And I'm like, no, I got to do it today. And they're like, no, just sit down. And then I have a porn stash under my bed. And so then I'm like, maybe I'll do it next Sunday because I got to.
Dude, this is what happened to me the first day of church. This is the exact same thing.
Yeah. So I'm like, I got to go clean up the porn stash. Because, again, this is 96, fam. There's no phone.
Right.
There's no crack version of porn, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the old school.
Dude, that's part of what I'm talking about on stage, where it's like just seeing one pair of tits in a tattered Playboy from the 80s. That screwed me up enough that if I had access to orgies in my pocket.
Oh my God.
Like, dude, if like our generation, like kids these days, they don't understand. We used to, if we heard like a rumor that someone's older brother had a stash, you would like get a tribe of little, like a bunch of horny goonies, and you'd go out and you'd fight private school kids. And there were like, or you'd have to watch like scrambled Spice Channel while
Yes,
just humping
absolutely.
couch pillow. Like,
Yeah.
Dark days.
Very dark porn days.
But also, thank God.
Yeah.
Because again, it screwed us up enough.
Yep.
Again, I mean, dude, sitting there with friends, waiting for one picture to load, and you'd like almost see boobs, and then the phone would ring.
Yeah.
Like, bam, 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 and you're just like, no. And nightmare.
It's so true. AOL was the worst place to look at breast.
Yeah.
So I'm in the back, and I remember thinking through, I'm gonna have to do this next week because I have to go purge the mattress, right?
Yep.
And
I said the same thing too. I didn't say I'm never doing this. I just go, I'm just gonna go next week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go have sex with this woman at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna come back next week. Easy,
it's gonna easy peasy.
Yeah.
And I remember the Holy Spirit saying, you won't do what you're planning to do unless you walk out of here with me. Like, you don't have the power. And truth be told, every other time I got sick of myself and my porn addiction and threw the stash away, dude, I dumpster dived.
Yeah.
3 days later, trash didn't come to Thursday. It's Wednesday night. I'm like,
yeah.
I guess I'm gonna be looking at a sour milk and freaking banana peels over this Playboy and stuck pages together. And I'm like I'm just telling you the truth, fam. Like, this was it.
Time to jerk off and blame the garbage man again.
It's your fault. You should have picked up the trash on Wednesday. Damn you, schedule. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, Jesus, like, I don't know what is happening right now. So, bro, I hear that and I'm like, and I just got to do it. So the first break in the service, in like old school Pentecostal churches, they have a testimony service, and like they literally, it's kind of open mic. Hey, anybody in here want to testify of the good things God has done? And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it's a train wreck, right?
Open micing.
It's open mic, right? So I stand up. Now, this church has 50 people in it, right? So it's not like the churches, you live in Texas long enough and you think every church has 2,000 people or more, right? So I'm in the back of the church, like 5 people up in front of me. My dad's officiating the service and he's going from front to back. Such a long way to answer your question, but
this is
just
great.
go with me. So, hey, what's your testimony? And the whole time I'm standing up in the back, these people are like very long-winded. And the 2 demons are getting louder, like, fool, sit down. Like, you're not going to do this. You're not worth doing this. Like, God doesn't really want, sit your ass down. He don't want you. Like, stop, right? I'm just sitting there like, and then my dad is like, Tim has something to say? Because I wasn't the PK that was like boning church girls and then like in the choir, like Jesus is mine, Jesus is mine. Yeah. I never mess with church girls. It's like I want the chick that has fathered issues and is like, if you're down for sex today, then I'm down for sex. So I was
my exes. Yeah. Great.
So my dad goes, I think Tim has something to say. And it's a small church, so everybody's like,
I love your dad thinking you were standing up because you were like, Mom's waiting in the car, or just something like,
exactly.
Something to do with God, right?
They're like, there's no way this kid has a testimony. Right. He doesn't play like this, right? And I said, I give up. Ooh. It wasn't like, Jesus is Lord to the glory of God. Yeah. I was like, I give up. Yeah. And everyone's kind of like stunned. And I was like, and then my dad was like, give up what? And I was like, I have to give my life to Jesus right now. And my mom lets out the loudest, like, in credit Tyler Perry hallelujah, like at the end of every, the last 5 minutes of redemption. Hallelujah, Jesus! Because my mom has 2 surgically repaired knees as a direct result of praying on them.
Whoa.
Like, doctor confirmed, bone on bone, wore out all the cartilage. He's like, ma'am, were you like an athlete, in your younger? She was like, no, but I pray on my knees a lot. He was like, you have no more cartilage in your knees.
That's incredible.
From praying on them.
My brother's a D1 wrestler and has the same injury. That rules, dude.
Yeah, he got to it a different way, right?
Yeah.
So my mom prayed the cartilage out of her knees for me and countless other people. Oh. So she lets out this Tyler Perry hallelujah, and I walk to the front, and I give my life to Jesus, and I'm a born-again porn addict.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I did get rid of that stash, but what was in here was already in here. My brain's already rewired. Yeah. All this stuff is going on,
and
right?
It makes it worse sometimes because you just go, I thought I fixed it. You know what I mean? And now...
That's what they think.
Yeah, and it's like, and now if I have Jesus and I still messed up, I'm even worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like essentially like you're playing with the NBA All-Star team and you still, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like I got Jesus on my side and I still can't.
Yeah, I can't get it in the bucket. It's a layup. Like, I'm not shooting a 3.
That's it.
I'm under the basket, and how did I still brick this, right? So I give my life to Jesus that day, and my younger brother, who is deceased, and my friend Steven, who is deceased, crazy. They come to get me, so we go to Venice Beach, and service is over. I hug my brother and I were 17 months apart. So Miles comes up to me, gives me a big dap, and then Steven does the same. And then Miles looks at me and he goes, dude. And I'm silent. And he goes, oh, fool. He was like, you did it, didn't you? Steven's right there. He has no idea what's going on.
Right.
He goes, you did it, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. He was like, nigga, oh, dude, my nigga, like, that's dope. Steven has no idea. Miles and I are so close. Miles looked me in my eyes and knew I gave my life to Jesus. Steven's like, bro, what's going on? He was like, this nigga just gave his life to Jesus. So Steven's like dapping me up now. He's like, bro, that's dope. And they were like, man, oh, man, that's so good. And then they were like, so I guess you ain't going with us to Venice Beach, huh? And I was like, nah. And I jumped in the car with my parents and drove 66 miles back home when they drove 20 miles to Venice Beach. January 15th, the next day, 1996, my only friends are mom, dad, a King James Thompson Chain Reference Bible, and a PS1. Laura Croft and I got really, really close. Yep. Yep. That woman is endeared to me to this day, right? Yeah. And I gave you this whole backstory to say, when you
buy Tomb Raider. Damn it, Tim. Damn it, Tim.
The definitive edition, though. It has to be the definitive edition.
It's fair.
Okay. So when you first give your life to Jesus, there is an abandonment.
Yeah.
It's an abandonment to your old way of living. In 24 hours, I went to from being like a really popular dude, a part of a really famous clique in the Indian Empire, the Inland Empire, the Indian Empire, the Inland Empire. Shout out to San Bernardino and everybody in the 909. To 24 hours later, my parents are my only friends.
Yeah.
And I was abandoned by my friends out of respect, not out of like, F you, Jesus lover. It was like, dude, we respect the decision that you've made, but we're not hanging out with you anymore. We don't have that in common anymore.
Yeah, I'm realizing, and then I want to circle back because I have a girl thing.
Yeah.
But I'll have that. Because, even the comics I'm friends with are just like, they're sweethearts, right?
Yeah.
They're degenerates,
as
am I, but
Yeah.
they're sweethearts. And so, they'll be like, oh, okay, new Jesus Jamie, and we kind of joke about it. And then, drinks start pouring a little more, and then they're kind of like, come on, like, I'm glad. And then I feel like, even being there sometimes, I feel like, like I'm messing up. And I'll try to say like prayers before I go. But again, being really blunt with God, where I'm like, hey, if I'm not supposed to be here, just show me. And then I'll like pause and be like, but like not in like a bad way, because I'm really fragile right now. And like we already did that back then. Like I don't need to like, like bomb in front of Joe Rogan.
Right,
like,
right.
Just like give me another cue, like before that would be awesome, like a text message or something. And but I really struggle because, the other day, this really famous comedian, he referenced a church, like super famous, like millions of followers, blah, blah, blah. And he referenced a church, and I go, it was the first time me and him met, and he's a sweetheart. And I go, oh, dude, I made some joke where I'm like, oh, it's the first time I've heard a comedian use like a church as like a landmark marker, kind of hoping like, friend, are you a Christian guy?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, this sucks. I haven't told anyone this. He said something like, oh, I'm not really a church guy. Like, I just kind of like take from like all different religions. And right away, I just jumped in. I was like, oh, yeah. Like, Ram Dass is what got me into Jesus, or said something about like Buddhism or whatever, but wasn't like, oh, I thought you were a Christian. That's cool. I'm a Christian too. Or I just like felt myself being like,
Right.
And, like,
Right. I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah. And I was so mad at myself for that. Like I felt so weak, but at the same time, it's like, what do you do? Right. Like throw holy water on him and be like, get out.
Yeah.
But it's tough. Or I mean, honestly, like I had sex recently, and I wasn't going to, like since baptism.
Yep.
And I've said no to a lot of women since then for either hookups or dating or sex. And this is someone I really care about. And it seemed like it could be a relationship, and same deal. You just kind of go, oh, my garbage. Do I have to start again? Do I have to completely cut ties with her? But also like I care about her. And it's your both fantasies and realities and bad habits just kind of morph.
Yeah, they do.
They don't necessarily go away.
No, not at all.
Like I went from, instead of fantasizing about, hooking up with a hot girl after a show down on 6th Street in Austin, now I fantasize about like having a family with one of the girls at my church. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
but it's still the same sort of like, this is what's going to define me. It's a woman. That's what's going to make me feel, good, or feel like a man or whatever. It's just different kind of fantasies. Or I wasn't really a porn guy. I'm like very sexual. So like in relationships, it was like we were having sex multiple times a day. So I didn't need porn. My penis couldn't take it. Even if I wanted it, I was just like, I would rather, but I know a lot of people struggle with porn who are in marriages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That wasn't the thing for me. If I have the real thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't
Yeah,
need
for
porn.
sure.
But then post baptism, become a porn guy. That was a sweet little gift I didn't see coming. Because I go, well, I don't want to have sex. And so sex bad. So then you start like doing this crazy like Russian roulette rationalization where I go, all right, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have sex with that girl who like slid into my DMs and she's really hot. But if I have sex with her, then I'm like, that's really violating. And porn wasn't even a thing back when Jesus was around. So chances are sex is more of a sin. So I'm just going to look at porn, get that out of the way, then be able to responsibly and respectfully, like a good feminine, tell this woman like, no, thank you. I'm a Christian. And then you go on like Pornhub, and it's not even like fun, normal porn anymore. I'm just like, when do you guys all start fucking your stepsisters? I'm like, I don't even like, so then you got to put it on mute because you don't even want to hear, because it's still the same hot girl, but you just don't want to hear like, see you at the family picnic. And you're like, no, like stop. And it's horrible. And I hate all of it.
Yep.
And then finally, and then I rationalized in the other way. I'm like, oh, well, I finally met this really cool girl. Maybe we could be in a relationship. So then like, but I also think, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too personal, but but there is part of me that I've heard people who have gone through the same thing as me.
Yeah.
Including my pastors talked about it.
Yeah.
One of them. And maybe there are just, the bar is still being raised, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Like I truly believe that if I did meet the right person, or the woman I'm supposed to marry or have a family with or whatever, and they were like, I don't want to have sex till marriage, I would almost be like, thank God, like I'm not in charge of this, because I could do it.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds, considering my past and whatever. It's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Dude, you think the affair wasn't me desperately looking for love?
Absolutely
You
correct.
think even porn isn't desperately looking for, I wish it would be so much easier, dude, if I was the creepy dude leering by the exit of the comedy club, just like trying to get laid with whatever.
Yeah.
No, I was desperately searching for love,
absolutely,
and attention, and validation. And,
Yep.
It's so hard. And, my pastor, I wrote it down. He has this great line. One of them, this is Ethan, where he's like, I don't want to mess this up, but it's something like, I don't want to have to drag my girlfriend towards Jesus. I want to chase her towards Jesus. Like, I want someone who's so upset putting Jesus first that I'm like, oh, I'm running after her.
Absolutely correct.
I'm not like, come on, babe. Like, just
absolutely.
watch The Chosen.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I promise you, this is a good gateway into.
You just said that to that girl. I literally just sent her the trailer. I sent her the season 2 trailer. Season 1 trailer is a little much. But I literally just did that. Where I was just like, look, Christian entertainment didn't used to be good, but apparently there's this TV show. Because also, Chosen, like I started watching it right as I got baptized, so I just like watched it like a documentary. But yeah, I was just raised when like any kind of Christian entertainment was just bad.
Oh my goodness, for sure.
So yeah, I definitely was like, I'm super guilty of that. I just at the airport flying here totally sent that girl the Chosen.
That's hilarious, bro.
But then also what you were saying about it's so hard too, because the church is so special to me.
Yes.
That I was like, I'm not going to slide into DMs there either.
Correct.
So you just go, well, that seems to be the only place that Christians go in like liberal ass Austin.
Right.
But it's also like, this place is special. I'm not going to be that dude.
Yep.
You see people in the lobby where you're like, are you guys literally just trolling the church lobby for pussy? Like, what is happening right now?
Right.
And everyone at my church is also like shockingly hot. Like every guy is just like ripped. Anyway. So it's really hard. You just go, well, where can I And you feel crazy because, again, this goes back to like, I just made my life harder.
Right.
But also so much easier, but also so much harder.
Dude, Okay. I want a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I want somebody to get baptized and be handed a t-shirt. Not that says, I made the decision. Right. I just got dunked. I want somebody to be handed a freaking hoodie that says, I just made my life harder.
It's so good.
I just went through spiritual circumcision.
Yep.
And now I'm sensitive to everything.
Yes.
My little fleshly foreskin has been chopped off. Mm-hmm. And now I think everything is convicting me.
It's a very long shirt. You have to flip over to the back for the rest of the text.
Exactly.
It just keeps going.
It's going all down the sleeves. It's like, hey, man, I'm at the airport. Can you stop walking real quick? I'm trying to read the rest of your...
Yeah.
But I just made my life harder is a much more accurate description
Yeah.
of what stepping into following Jesus really means
Yeah.
than I said yes.
Yep. No, I shouted out the other two pastors, the head pastor at my church, to round out the trifecta, Doug. He says he always says God came and messed up my plans, and that's so.
That's facts.
It's dude so much because, I mean, again, ever since I had my I surrender moment, and which was recently, it was a couple weeks ago. Suddenly it's just your path's pretty much laid out. And once your path is so obviously laid out, you start to look back and see all the places you were blocking it.
Yep.
Where I just go, oh, okay, well, if God's telling me this is it, then I'm just actually going to, every time I hit a wall, I'm actually going to keep going.
Yep.
Because usually I hit a wall and I go, well, this must not be it.
Yep.
But now you have God telling you this is it.
Yep.
And you go, shit, all right, well, then this is it. So then you find ways around the wall suddenly that you would have never found.
Yep. That's great.
But it's definitely, it's not the route I thought, but looking back, kind of was, right? My favorite political speaker was this guy named Cornel West.
Yes.
And
brilliant.
Yeah. And so
brilliant.
I got to do a show with him last year in New York, and realizing that, and that was one of the things before I found Jesus. It was hugging Cornell. I'll send you the clip.
Yeah.
Because I met him at a bookstore.
Yep.
I used to work at Borders, which
I remember Borders.
Yep. It was where everyone who couldn't get hired at Barnes and Noble was where all the rejects went. So that's where I was. It was Borders, and Cornell came in, and he asked me. We were talking, and I told him I was a comedian, and we were talking about Pryor, and I asked him if he heard of Bill Hicks, and he said no, and he wrote it down. And I go, hey, I really want to be a writer, because again, I was even struggling with comedy then. I'm like, maybe I'm a writer. Maybe I can get away from this.
Yeah.
And I go, do you have any advice? And he goes, read voraciously. And in my head, I go, cool. I don't know what voraciously means. And so I've always had that story in my pocket. And so I got to go perform right before Cornell, and Tulsi Gabbard introduces me to Cornell, and he gives me the biggest hug. And I told him that story, dude. And you see his reaction of such genuine joy and love, and he's hugging me, and he starts shaking my hand. He's like, you go channel Brother Pryor. And I just remember feeling God in the room, because again, it was a political event. It was at the Beacon Theater. It was a political event, and a lot of it was super divisive. Yep. But Cornell was there. Yeah. And my goal was just tell Cornel West this story. You know? And so looking back at even when I was an atheist, it's well, why was I obsessed with this guy? Yeah. I didn't Google Richard Dawkins speeches. I Googled Cornell speeches. And it's well, because there was always, this path was always there. Yeah, for sure. I just destroyed it and just kept wandering off. For so long. And now it's I feel myself still well, I can compromise on this part because I'm doing this part, or I can do. And I mean, it is a battle every day. For sure. Just figuring out how to walk it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that abandonment thing is real. And, just to button up that point on, being left alone with my parents and a King James Bible, which is off-roading in a Honda Civic, right? And Laura Croft in Resident Evil, the first one, the very first Resident Evil. Some demon dog jumped through a piece of glass at 2:00 in the morning, and I screamed like a little girl, a 6-year-old little girl. I was in the house by myself. 12 months didn't go by before I connected with, I'll never forget Keisha. I don't know if Keisha even knows I have a podcast, and I don't remember Keisha's last name. But Keisha became my first friend who also was on this journey with Jesus. And because I was 20 and now I'm not in clubs anymore performing, I'm not writing raps, I'm not in freestyle battles, I am this believer in Jesus. And then Keisha is she's also a believer in Jesus. So I'm like, what church are you going to? You know what I mean? And so hung out with Keisha, and then somebody else was like, I'm trying Jesus too. And then so then I could stop bugging the hell out of my parents and like hang out with Keisha and another guy. You know what I mean?
I think that was actually really helpful. I think I got to get a little ballsier because I have so many church friends.
Yep.
You know, like the whole like worship, like we're all DMing on Instagram, and I think part of me is just so not used to just being around kind, loving, nice people that I'm actually not really picking their brains about anything biblical.
Got you.
Because I'm feeling Jesus through them.
Yep.
Just like when they play music, I feel Jesus through them.
Yep.
And also I don't want to be a burden. So even when I go out with my pastor, it's literally so much of me being like, well, how can I help you? Like, you guys should start a podcast. Like, I can help you start a podcast. And they should start a podcast. I was like, I can help you guys start a podcast, or, you know, let's talk about writing or whatever, because I don't want to be, I don't know, maybe it's part of me that's like, I want to be special. Like, I just want to be around
For
them,
sure.
that it's like, I don't want to be another person who's just like, can you explain this, or what passage of the Bible? I mean, if I had someone literally be like, hey dude, I'll get together with you every morning for an hour and like go over the Bible, and like, because I think you'd be a really good conduit for a lot of people, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But maybe that's what it is. Maybe I should make those friendships a little more about Jesus. But right now, you know, again, it's like relationships.
Yeah.
It's, you come from such toxic, emotionally abusive or trauma bonding, whatever, codependent, that was me, relationships. And then suddenly you're around someone who is just kind and wonderful and can take care of themselves. There's part of you that goes, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And there's another part of you that goes, I'm going to ruin this and throw it into the ocean because I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same with my church friends. Like, you know, I'm an introvert too, but I went to like a couple game nights and just being around them was so cool.
Yeah.
And then I just felt myself like, get out of here. You're not wanted here. Or, you know, when they follow me on Instagram, it's like, I get excited at first because I'm like, oh, they're going to see the blue check and see that, like, you know, people like, but like, oh, what if they like Google the bad stuff? And then like, you know, someone will follow me on Instagram and maybe they don't see me at church the next day. And my head goes to, oh, they probably know that I'm like, I shouldn't be here. And so then I just like avoid that. Like, it's wild.
It's a lot going on.
The shit that you will say in your head to talk yourself out of just like peace and love.
Yeah, for sure.
Which again, we should be running towards.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's one thing I'll submit to you that I hope like stokes that courage.
Yeah.
Right. To step out there. Anytime I feel a connection with somebody, I'm like, hey man, take my number.
Yeah.
Call me for anything or nothing at all.
Yeah.
And don't say no for me in your head.
Oh, that's all I do.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
That's all I do.
Yeah. Like literally, don't think to yourself, I know Tim's busy, so I don't want to bug him. If you're bugging me, I'll tell you.
Right.
If I'm busy, I'll tell you. And I'm also going to tell you when I'm not busy, hey, bro, can't get back to you right now, Jamie, but I'm free after 6.
Yep.
Right? You know what I mean? And like, because all relationships are risky and you got to put yourself out there, and you can be rejected, right?
Yeah.
But for those of us with abandonment issues, that hits way different than somebody that doesn't have that, right? So you're like way more cautious. And for myself,
if you're not planning on giving me your number after this speech, I'm going to jump out this window. If I hear some 555 bullshit, out the window. Out the whole window.
No, dude, you had it. You had it at hello.
That's right.
So, but I because I'm an empath, and I'm always feeling for the other side.
Yeah, same.
Right.
Yep.
I'm always feeling for the other side, so I'm putting myself in their shoes. But then I do it unnecessarily.
Yeah,
and I've written a whole backstory and narrative in my head about something I haven't even asked yet.
I know.
I've already come to a conclusion, and I'm like, I haven't talked to that guy in 9 months. Why? He gave you his number. How come you didn't reach out? Oh, I didn't want to bother him. I saw him on the red carpet.
Yep.
And so I thought, oh, and he's probably busy.
That's it. And imagine if all that energy, all that creative energy that we use to create backstories about why we're bad, why we're undeserving. Imagine if we used all of that energy to write positive stories, to write stories about like, man, I bet I can inspire Tim as much as he can inspire me. Or,
absolutely.
It's like the people who complain on the internet in the YouTube comments, right? And it's like, man, if all the time you spent shitting on other people's art, you created something, you would be so happy that you wouldn't need to shit on other people's art.
Absolutely
I don't
correct.
shit on other people's art because I get to make things.
That's
and I get to make what I want to make.
Absolutely
right?
correct.
And you just see all of YouTube comments are a cry for help.
Yep.
Which is, you watch that and you just go, man, this dude wants to make a podcast. And it's like someone just let him make a podcast. He's so mad right now.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
make something. And I think like, but we use all of this energy and all of this time just to sit around hating on ourselves. And it's like, well, clearly we have the time. So what if we just flip that around and could just write stories about, I mean, there will be a point where I'm on the plane and I'm going to be like, they're not even going to air this fucking episode. I'll talk myself out of it. Dude, when I swear to God, when the location got changed on the Evite, I was like, it's because they don't want me knowing where their personal stuff is. Like they're renting out some undisclosed location for their trash guests. Like it was the story.
It's the story you tell yourself.
There was no reason to think anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any of that.
We literally won $2,000 worth of free time. It's like, this is nowhere near my house, but I'm taking the free gig. If you're gonna give me the space, I'm coming, right?
Yep. And I thought the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not special enough to go to what. But it's where that stuff comes from, and all of us do it because we all have some form of trauma or PTSD or abandonment issues and whatever. And I think that's also really helpful. That's another thing I really like about you, where it's when you walk into a church and you automatically feel like you're the bad one or you're going to go to hell or you're just being judged and somehow everyone else is perfect. It's same with like self-help. Like, you listen to these guys who have been, I was a billionaire at 19 where you're like, well, I'm then because I'm 40 and divorced and found you because of the YouTube algorithm. So like, what am I going to do?
Exactly.
Like, well, every morning, my servant makes me a green shake and I jump in the cold plunge. And I was just like, I mean, I could go to the pool in the winter and like in my apartment complex, but like summer, it's not a cold plunge anymore.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? And you just feel so helpless.
Yeah, for sure.
But man, and again, that's antithetical to Jesus' message. My favorite thing when I found out, like the fishermen I always knew, but what I didn't know, maybe I learned this from you. I learned this from someone. What I didn't know was that if you were a fisherman, you'd kind of been rejected by
That's correct.
the church.
Oh, absolutely correct.
And like, that was so much cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fishermen, prostitutes, tax collector, already cool.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then it's like, oh, and they were rejected by the establishment.
That's right. The rabbis didn't take them.
Yeah. And being on the other side of Christianity, this is something, again, I haven't talked about because I don't have anyone to talk to about it, is so wild because I'm used to judging Christians because I thought they judged everyone else. So, I mean, my old album's just trashing Christianity.
Yeah.
And this is, again, under the Bush administration. I saw it as pro-gay rights, whatever.
Right.
And now that I'm a Christian, I'm just like, oh, well, this is easy. Everyone's just going to know that I'm nice and cool and whatever. So there was this girl that I was talking to. She worked at the coffee shop I go right at. Mm-hmm. She was so cool. And we would just have these like great conversations. And because it was, I was a baby new Christian, somehow Jesus kept coming up. But it was always in really positive ways that she loved. She continued to talk to me. She would pursue the conversations. And then one day she was struggling with a relationship thing. And I was just like, well, do you want advice? You want to vent? And she goes, I never told you that I'm gay. And I go, oh, did you think I was like hitting on you? She's like, no. She was like, I never told you I was gay because like, you've been really cool about it, but like occasionally you'll bring up Jesus. And I've never been on that side of it. Wow. Or I was like, you think I'm gonna.
Right.
And it's
that part.
And it's the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then this girl I'm seeing said the same thing. Like, she knows how open-minded I am. We have the most like intense conversations. And she was like, hey, like I've like dated women in the past. And I was like, cool. Like, I'm just all right.
Right.
And she was like, oh, just because of the Christian thing. I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
And, even when like having people who are really close to me, like come to church or, I talk about it and their first reaction is like, well, am I going to be judged? And it's so heartbreaking. The good thing about finding Jesus at 40 is I have no baggage.
Yep.
You play me the cheesiest worship song, my hands are in the air, I'm crying, even though like you're jaded, 20-year, whatever, they're just like, oh, this shit again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, hail King Jesus. Like, I'm just like, I'm in it, right? Sometimes my church will do a mashup and just throw in the chorus in the middle of one of their.
Oh, dude, that ruins me. They're not playing fair at that point. I'm in the floor with a pillow. Tuck me in. I'm crying myself to sleep.
Segue back to the first song.
Yes. Oh, dude, no. Wipes me out.
Yeah, and so that's great. But then the other part is, and that's because I don't have church hurt.
Yep.
So for people who are like, oh, it's too late at 40 or whatever, I'm like, oh, I'm loving it.
Yes, for sure.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
Because I don't have baggage.
That's right.
I don't have a priest who was addicted to me or who molested me or I don't have any of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just here.
That's beautiful.
But I forget about that stuff because I see my life has become thousands times better since Jesus.
Yep.
And I see Jesus, and that makes me love people more.
Right.
That makes me want to help people more.
Right.
And so then when people just assume that means suddenly now I am
anti
anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Let alone I can't imagine with someone like you who's been around it for so long.
Yeah.
Feels, and you've probably had arguments with people or lost
Yeah.
friends or fans or whatever.
Yeah.
Just by saying, hey, we should probably all love each other because that seems like the central thesis.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being I was working for this church, and this is around the time where the LGBT community, the LGBTQIA plus community, and
you're a better liberal than me.
and Christianity started to kind of converge, right? There were these people that had these Christian roots and grew up loving same-sex, having a same-sex attraction, and then loving who they felt like they love.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to reconcile that with Scripture and with the churches, and so they're almost coming back with pitchforks, like, y'all lied to me, and I'm coming back. Like, your roosters are coming home to nest.
Well, this is cancel culture in general, where it's like, even though it's gone off the rails, so much of it is rooted in like actual justice that hasn't been, you know what I mean? Where it's like there are so many women who have been assaulted, raped, in abusive relationships, stalked, over and over and over again.
Yep.
And so suddenly redemption started happening, right? Cosby, Weinstein, all this stuff.
Kelly.
But then everyone's just like, fuck everyone. And now suddenly, an affair is as bad as Harvey Weinstein,
right.
or a relationship where both of them were emotionally abusive to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Were, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went back on Rogan for like the redemption arc, he said something like, isn't it worse, to be like falsely accused of something? And I had to be like, and again, that was probably a moment that if I wanted to go I'm now the men's rights guy.
Right.
And I was like, look, man, there are so many more women who don't get justice for their sexual assaults or whatever. That like, I'm gonna say no. But if you do falsely accuse people, if you do conflate an affair with whatever sexual misconduct, you're actually, it's bad for guys. Wasn't fun for, but it's also, it's worse for women.
That's correct.
Because now people are going to take it less seriously.
That's right.
And I saw it happen. Like after that, like the Aziz Ansari story, everyone was just like, oh, this is all. So now you're going to have women who are, the women who have had my back the hardest, like publicly, behind the scenes, lawyers, they're all women who were actually in abusive relationships or sexual assault, because they're like, this is garbage.
Right. Exactly.
And so like that is the overcorrection sometimes.
Kills it.
But it comes from this place of like, dude, we've been oppressed for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then what's happening with so much of the overcorrection, whether it's with the LGBT community, whether it's cancel culture, whatever, is you're driving people farther away from supporting, you know what I mean?
That's correct.
Where it's, I can go on a right-wing show and say, don't bully trans people. And I've said that on several shows that have millions of people, but I'm also not pro bringing kids to drag shows.
Period.
At all.
Yeah.
But that would get me canceled from the left saying that.
Right.
But then, because I say that, I get to go on the right-wing shows and go, hey, I'm against kids going to drag shows.
Yep.
And then the right-wing people go, okay, you are now a trustworthy person. And then I go, also, gay people don't want to groom your kids.
That's exactly
The
right.
majority of them want to just watch Downton Abbey and chill.
That's right.
Like, they don't want to, they're not all, so let's not treat them all like sexual predators, but let's call out creepy shit when we see creepy shit.
Yeah.
It's not all of them. Just
Yeah.
like you don't like saying, all white people are racist or all white men are the same deal.
Yeah, for sure.
All gay people, not groomers, trans people, but that, which seems like such a nuanced, normal thing to say, can get you booted from either side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember the first time I had that realization was when I found John Mark Comer, and I started listening to him, like his podcast and the Bridgetown. And you hear him and you go, oh, this is an effeminate vegan from Portland. Like he's my old friends.
Right.
And then you hear him talk about nothing bad, nothing like, trans people are going to hell, but you hear him talk about family values or sex before marriage or secular society in Portland. And you go, ooh, this effeminate vegan sounds like pretty conservative. But then you hear him talk about social justice and you hear him talk about things like that and income inequality. And you go, ooh, he sounds like my old Bernie Sanders friends.
Right. Right, exactly.
And then you realize that like this whole thing of us trying to be, nuanced and how am I going to bring political parties together is Jesus.
Exactly.
Again, if you're following Jesus, you are in the middle. Like you're going to piss off both sides.
To the Bible we shall go. Holy snap. Okay. All right. So this is one of my favorites. And oh my goodness. Okay. So this is Joshua chapter number 5. Okay. This is, it's a really dope thing. This is before they walk around the wall 7 times in Jericho. 13 times total. But before they take down Jericho, after like a whole generation has to be circumcised and like chill for like 3 days so they can all heal, right? 3 to 5 days so they can heal. Okay, so this is Joshua 5, starting at the 13th verse. When Joshua was near the town of Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with the sword in hand. Joshua went up to him and demanded, "Are you friend or foe?" "Neither one," he replied. "I am the commander of the Lord's army." Now, most theologians believe this is a pre-incarnate Christ, right? This is Christ showing up in the Old Testament, making cameo appearances before he comes through the womb of a virgin.
It's like Stan Lee in the Marvel movies.
Exactly right? He's just making cameos, right? Great reference. At this point, Joshua fell with his face to the ground in reverence. "I am at your command," Joshua said. What do you want your servant to do?" The commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did as he was told. The main part of that passage is, are you friend or foe? These are Jewish people started with Abraham, the first Gentile to step into faith with God. And now we have like millions of people that are now a group of people only because God called one man, right? And gave him a promise. And the dude that would be Jew through the womb of a virgin, both descendants of David, right? Both Joseph and Mary, but they didn't consummate their marriage because that's a whole nother nerdy thing I can do at another time.
Sure.
Are you friend or foe? It would be so convenient if Jesus would have been like, "Of course I'm for you.
Right.
You're the Jews. You're my dad's chosen people. I'm going to put my sword up and you're going to kick everybody's ass in Jericho. Canaan is yours." He literally goes, I'm neither one.
Right.
I'm not on your side. I'm not on their side.
Right.
I'm on my own side. And you need to choose which side that is. Friend or foe, I'm bigger than friend or foe. I'm the commander of the Lord's army.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm way higher than that. And people don't like to be in the middle of that type of tension.
You know, I don't. It's funny. When I started going to church, I was like, everything but the devil. Like, that gets a little, it seems a little much. It seems a little much. And then the week after my baptism, so I've done jiu-jitsu and MMA for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've trained with current UFC champions, best in the world. I'm very good.
Sweet.
And right now I have the worst injury I've ever had. And, you know, obviously it's a very violent sport. The worst injury I've ever had, so I've been out since a week after my baptism.
Wow.
Did not happen sparring Alexander Volkanovski. Did not happen training for a competition. I volunteered at my church after baptism. I showed up the Sunday after baptism. I played Duck, Duck, Goose. I tore everything here playing Duck, Duck, Goose in church the week after my baptism. And that's when I was like, I'll hear you out on this devil fella. Because, wow, what do you think my first thought was? Was it, I'm never playing Duck, Duck, Goose? Or was it, I'm not even wanted here? Right?
Right.
And that was it. I was like, I finally thought I found the only place that would like love me. And I'm like, I fucked it up. I was being an idiot.
Wow.
I like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what was really funny too is I didn't show anyone that like it just all popped, and I was just like, you got me. And I'm out. And they started, it was just a volunteer rally, but the worship group plays one song, and it was like an oddly slow, like hallelujah song. And they must have been like, oh man, Jamie's like tearing up, like he's really feeling the Lord. And I was just like, my groin, like I can't walk, and just like tears are coming out my face as I'm trying to stand there, and I'm like trying to sadly worship because of fucking Duck, Duck, Goose. And it was so bad. I forgot why I was. So that's when I started being like, okay, these little voices that I've always heard when it comes to relationships or not being loved, or like that's the devil's not just like, oh fuck that girl, pitchfork.
Right.
It suddenly kind of became clear, and you know, my friend Tim was like, hey man, you're gonna be a threat.
Yep.
Like you're a threat. So like this shit's gonna happen to you.
Yep.
I was like, that's not fun. But what I wonder is, we were talking about this before with, when we were talking about those racists who were like, you're a good one. But the other ones, and remember when we were like, why don't people just, it would be so much easier to love everyone.
Yep.
And same with this whole middle ground path. Friend or foe, well, it would be so much easier just, again, to love everyone. It would be so much easier to be able to see truth in both sides, and like our life would literally be better if we could do that. So then that question of like, just like, why are people so mean? Why are people like not trying to unite? Why are people, and maybe the answer like is more spiritual. Maybe it is, because when you told that story, it's like, oh, well, if that's what God wants, so it feels easy once you go down that path. Once you go down that path, you're like, oh, loving everyone, cool. I got to call myself out when I'm being a dick or when I'm judging, and like, but I actually call myself out now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
right.
But if the answer is deeper, if the answer is, oh, because there are also other forces that don't want that.
That's correct.
And they're making it super, I mean, you know, you look around.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's so much easier to go down that path. Again, like this is hard now or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the answer is a little weirder.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And what I love about the Bible, and what I love about, I have several friends that are Messianic Jewish rabbis, right?
Okay.
They believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, right? And they're always telling me, they're like, dude, you Christians in the West, you really suck.
Sure.
He was like, because all we do is hold tension and argue with each other as rabbis about the holy text.
Yeah.
And he was like, you guys are always trying to just nail it black and white. This is right. This is wrong.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's way more.
As someone who was raised Jewish, this adds up. I was like, oh, you guys just sat around arguing with each other? Yeah, that's my family.
Right. So for me, this story that I was talking about with working at this church,
Yeah.
the LGBTQIA plus community is like they're picketing on this day, and this church is ready to play like full court defense. Like we got to brace. The gays are coming, and I'm like, and they're like, they can't come past. You know, we already know legally they can't go past this sidewalk, but we don't want them shouting at our.
Well, if they go past the sidewalk, that's how they get everyone else to be gay. Obviously, we all know that. Where's my camera? We all know that.
They're gonna break up homes if they pass this sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like,
I'm waiting to see. I see one hot gay guy walk towards me past that sidewalk, and I'm gonna be like, "This is what I've been missing my whole life. I've just been with these mean women, and this flamboyantly hilarious guy with abs wants to." No,
we're done.
Yeah.
So it rains that day,
Okay.
and I'm like, okay, we need to get umbrellas because I think the gay people are still coming.
Yeah.
And if the gay people are coming, we have like a really dope cafe here at this campus, and we have a ton of umbrellas.
Yeah. This is the "it's raining men" prophecy from the Bible. I don't know if it's Old Testament or New Testament, but it's happening.
It's happening right now. And so I'm like, get bagels, get donuts, get coffee.
I love this.
And get umbrellas.
Yeah.
Because the gays are coming.
Yeah.
And we're going to go out there and meet them. And I said, I'm hugging every single protester that comes up.
That's it.
And we are just going to rock with them. You know what happened? That damn rain. None of them gays showed up.
No.
I was so bummed.
Yeah.
My team was bummed because I was ready to show God's love.
That's it.
To their presumed hate.
That's it.
That far away, they get to keep that narrative.
That's it.
And I'm like, oh, there's close enough proximity for me to literally hug every single one of them and blow their stereotypes to smithereens.
That's it.
And they're gonna hate church still, and they're gonna have an asterisk by ours.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's the story, right? Like, people forget this. I used to say this when I was super liberal, and I was like, look, man, I'm not expecting to go do stand-up at, some right-wing place, and suddenly they're like, oh, you know what, man, we want to open up like a mom and pop abortion clinic, or go, start to we're going gay right here.
Yeah.
But the goal, which now is like I can't even define myself politically. Like, now as a Christian, I'm kind of doing the same thing where people have so many walls up and are so defensive that you're not trying to change their mind on the spot.
Right.
But if 2 weeks later, when someone is going, oh, these five judgmental Christians, blah, 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 and they go, I don't know, man, I met this one guy, and I'm not saying I'm Christian, but like, there was this one church that was pretty cool, and it's suddenly like the not all Christian thing. Or like, I don't know, there was this one liberal dude, and he wasn't screaming at me about not being vegan. He was just like kind of cool and funny, and he told dick jokes, and I don't know, we all laughed. I shook his hand at the end.
Yeah.
That's the start. That's my friends who didn't throw Jesus at me when I was suicidal,
right,
and who were just good men.
Yeah, for sure.
And then suddenly I come around and I go, oh, those good men. I remember them.
Yes.
And then you look back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, So I started a for-profit entity after spending 27 years in nonprofit called Upset the World LLC. And it's taken from Acts chapter number 17. Paul and Silas go into this city, and this Jewish mob gets so pissed off, right? Because like these Greek people started following Jesus as a result of what Paul and Silas were sharing. And raging and railing their fists. They're like, these men have caused trouble all over the world, and now they're here to disturb our city too. And that word in the Greek, cause trouble, literally means they've turned the city upside down. Mm-hmm. right? Which I argue is right side up.
Yep.
Right? Because the kingdom of God is upside down.
Yeah.
It is the opposite of everything that's in secular culture, right? Climb the ladder. Nope. God elevates people. He promotes people, right? And like, backstab everybody to get to the top. And it's like, love everybody and be humble and turn the other cheek. And so it's upside down.
Right.
And literally my literal passion is to literally just blow people's stereotypes at all time.
Yeah.
Whether it's me as a black man, whether it's me as a believer in Jesus, whether it's me as a husband.
Yeah.
Like I'm like there. You talk about the toxic people in the comment section, right? Mm-hmm. I put out. We have one viral clip that it went nuclear. I think it has like 60 million plays on whatever it is, whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, marriage is work.
Yeah.
Marriage is hard work and blah, blah, blah. There's people in the comment section that's like, yeah, you'll be divorced next year. Like the
They're
world.
Like, I'm commenting this from the bathroom because it's the only place I can hide from my mean wife. And this isn't projection. I'm just saying.
Your wife's going to leave you in a year. Yeah. I'm bringing.
Oh, wait, she's coming. I got to go.
I'm saving this clip so that when your divorce is public, I'm going to remind you of this. And I'm like,
bro, are you okay?
They're not, right? So, but they're so toxic that they can't see the beauty in anything, right? And so it's like to upset what people have resigned themselves to.
Yeah.
Is wildly fulfilling to me.
Yeah. Well, when I started following Jesus, I suddenly started catching myself all the times when I would see this comic got a gig I wanted. And my first response was like, fuck that comic. Or even like I start following my church friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, they have the family I want. Look at them getting married and they're having their first kid. And I'm like, fuck those guys. And like, it's as opposed to like when you have your own story and you have your own path, and it's really going to be beautiful if you just stop getting in your own way and you follow God. Then you can see someone else who has their own path with that gig, with that family, and you can go, oh man, that rules.
Yeah.
Like good for them. Yep. Right. But if you're just like, I hope you get divorced and I'm going to show you this clip. And you're just like, bro, did I kill your parents? Like what, you're talking to me like you're out for like revenge.
It's Bruce Wayne that's in the comments section.
Dude, it was so, you're like, where is all this coming? Like, and I've dealt with people like that.
Yeah.
Where you're like, dude, your full-time job is just going after people.
It's crazy.
And you're like, you have to pray for them because you have to just go, man, you're missing an entire life.
Yeah, for sure.
That could be beautiful, that could be laid out for you. And yeah, it's so much more freeing to be happy for people.
Yep.
But again, it's not necessarily encouraged.
Very true.
I'll fall into gossip quick. If I'm around that. And if we spend all that time like lifting each other up and supporting each other, then everyone gets to be happy.
Yeah, for sure.
But instead we feel like, it can only be me. We just have to cut people down. And it's just, it's completely counterproductive because then you're spending so much time cutting other people down. You don't work on you. You don't work on you. You feel like a failure. You do fail. And then you get to see, it was these other people. It's like, no, bro, it was you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't those other people. Those other people aren't thinking about you.
Yeah, for sure.
It was you spent all this time shitting on other people instead of trying to help others. Last year when I just was coming out of homelessness and I still wasn't making rent and all this stuff, I was probably helping more people than I've ever helped before. And I didn't have the resources for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't have time to go. And I'm talking like from my friends to, feeding people in Austin. Like, I wasn't feeding. I literally could only afford to make them peanut butter sandwiches. And so I would just make a ton and I'd bring them down. And I didn't have resources to do that. And because of that, it's like I've had some really hard times and I've been like, why am I doing this? Yeah. But then I've also had like since then, like the successes are just like piling on top of each other in the right direction.
Yeah, that's great.
Not in the I just need validation or I want to do shows so I can get hot chicks after but like in the oh, this is what it feels like to start to succeed, but doing deep and meaningful work, which I wasn't really doing before.
Yep.
I have this Post-it note on my door. I want to make this a shirt. I can't afford a team. But I wrote love and disrupt. And it's similar to what turning it upside down.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It's just like, I'm going to disrupt. I'm going to get shit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm probably going to give shit.
Yep.
But like, you're leading with love.
Yeah, that's
first.
for sure. Absolutely.
And I think that combination, because some people just want to disrupt because they want chaos or whatever. I feel like that was the old me on stage, just screaming and yelling. If you disagree with me, you're wrong.
Yep.
But because I was screaming for things that I thought were good, right? Like equality or ending wars, I was like, I wasn't looking at the method I was using. And I was like, well, I can't be wrong because I'm defending people.
Yeah.
But I was just judging and yelling and, it bit me in the ass, right? It backfired.
Yep.
But now it's like, oh no, if you disrupt with love as like, that's the main ingredient.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not about me. It's not, look at me, I'm so self-righteous, I'm going to stop the war. It's like, just love, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about your podcast, because one of the things that I find fascinating for people that have already been out in the public, right?
Yeah.
And then they have this encounter with Jesus, they have it in front of everybody, right? And so they come back into their world, and everything in their world is the same except them.
Yeah.
Right? This is Saul's testimony, right? Where it's like, I'm on my way to kill Christians, and 3 days later he was like, I'm about that. Yeah, I'm about that whole life.
Yeah.
And they weren't actually called Christians at that point, but yeah, the followers of the way, right? Sure. So how long have you had your podcast? How long have you been doing it? Is it a daily? Is it a weekly? Like, how have you?
So right now I'm honestly kind of struggling with it.
Okay.
Where I was thinking about, okay, so I'm coming on this show today. This show has the audience I want. I should probably promote stuff. And I was like, I was hesitant, right? So I'm like, just follow me on social media and I'll tell you what I'm going to do next. But essentially, like, I first blew up with a podcast, and it was a political shit stirring trash people who don't agree with you podcast. And then when I got divorced, I just kind of started a random podcast again, and I was doing it by myself, and it felt like I was doing it just because it was the only thing I knew, and I felt like I was doing it sort of as like a crutch, right? And when I go on podcasts, love it. This is great. I feel like I'm good at it. I really enjoy it. I know I help a lot of people, but there was something about, and I haven't talked about this with anyone until Sam last night, but there was something about, even when I was going into a studio in Austin or just in my apartment with a mic, it just felt like I was still begging for people to love me or not leave me. Because every time I lost everything, I'm like, well, I can still do a podcast.
Got it.
It was it.
Got it.
And so I rebranded it. It was called like a Fuck Up's Guide to the Universe. And I rebranded it and went with a company recently in Austin. I was like, maybe if I just focus on like mental health. So it's mental health comedy, and it's called Advice Not Taken for obvious reasons. I'm very proud of the title. I like that. Where it's like, hey, the premise is, if I'm going to do a mental health podcast, it's about I'm fucking up too with you. It's what my church did, for me. For sure. Where it's like, we're working through this together.
Yep.
But then, like, I do a political show, and suddenly, like, 2,000 new people are following me on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, I guess I should do something political, but I don't really want to talk about Trump, but, like, all right, let's just, like, talk about Trump here. And then, but, all right, I don't talk about mental health, but people are DMing me on Instagram, but they don't want me to, like, share it on the show, so I'm like, I guess I'll just, like, talk about my dating life, and now I'm talking about dating, and I don't want it to be weird for the girls, and I'm just not enjoying it.
Yeah.
I got to have some cool, like John Cleese, I got to open for from Monty Python, and I had him on, and it was great, but I'm not even like excited to promote it.
Yeah.
And so I think I might put it on hold.
Yeah.
I just canceled my Patreon last night. And I technically don't have the gig that's going to replace that, but I just feel that I feel it. I feel all this other stuff coming, and for the right reasons. And I feel like one of the reasons it's not here yet is because I haven't completely surrendered my old life. And so, the Patreon was always like, oh, if you give me $5 a month, I can make rent, But I kind of just, if I put out a podcast, I kind of just want to be able to go, hey, there's no sponsors. I'm making no money. There's no Patreon. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want. Nobody can stop me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just do it for me. Maybe I do it once a month.
Yep.
Maybe I only interview Christians. Yep. I don't know.
Yep.
But if I'm not accountable to anybody,
right,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm really focusing on stand-up, on starting to talk about stuff like this on stage, which is very challenging and very rewarding.
Yeah.
When I do podcasts, like, I talk like this. I try to tell people that they're not alone, but I do that on like my Instagram just as much, except more people can see it.
Yep.
So I talk a lot about mental health. I talk about when I'm struggling, but also how I'm getting out of it.
Yep.
Make comedy sketches. I want to start doing more about being a new believer. And again, the premise of mine, whether I'm doing a political sketch, a relationship sketch, or whatever, the premise is always just like man flailing. Man desperately trying to do good and flailing. Mm-hmm. And so if I do want to start doing like Christian sketches on my Instagram, it's not going to be judgy Christian stuff. It's going to be what we talked about today.
Yep.
It's going to be like, okay, so now that I'm Christian, everything's fine. And then just like struggle.
Right.
And just, that would be how I approach it. So I'm in this really cool / scary place.
Yeah, sweet.
Where I've never felt so much confidence in what I'm doing and what I believe and what I'm writing. And also, I'm not really positive the vehicle yet.
Yep.
Stand-up clubs are hard. Being on stand-up stage, easy.
Yep.
Easiest thing I've ever done, right? Went up at Rogan's Club for the first time the other night, crushed it. Like, I feel like I can be in the most high pressure situations and crush it. Off stage, I'm a fucking mess.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I belong here, and I'm just, panicking.
Yep.
Podcast, same deal. Put a mic in front of me, great.
Yep.
I can be vulnerable and honest and funny. I think it's been a crutch for me. I don't like to be on social media a lot, but like right now, the things that's bringing me the most joy are these sketches that I'm making on Instagram, talking about mental health in the Instagram stories. Twitter, I have the biggest following, but that place is a fucking cesspool. So I'm just kind of like putting that on hold. So I would say if people like this, I would say Instagram is where you'll be getting the best of like stand-up, podcast, sketch, mental health stuff.
Yep.
That'll be there. And then if I do decide to commit back to the podcast, those feeds will still be there. You can go to JamieKilsteinPodcast.com and, whatever. But yeah, I don't really know.
No, that's beautiful. Well, the beautiful thing about not knowing is that God has room to surprise you.
Yeah.
And, dude, you couldn't have paid me to believe this time last year that I'd be a podcaster.
Right.
They couldn't have paid me to believe.
Well, they had no money.
They were broke. They couldn't literally pay me to believe it. And this has been the most wonderful surprise. Yep. Listen, I have loved every minute of the 27 years I've had him. No, that's a lie. I have not loved every minute of the 27 years that I've had in ministry. I have enjoyed the growth that has come from it.
Well, and you're so lucky to have a team like them because they are wonderful people. Because I feel like if I had the right team behind me and we could almost kind of start from scratch and, like if someone pitched, hey, we got a budget, we got a producer, you don't have to do social media shit.
Yep.
You don't have to, if you want to talk about Jesus, like we want you to talk about it. Like, I think that would be different, but I almost feel like I need a reset.
For sure.
And just because right now stand-up is blowing up. So it's like I just keep blowing stuff up there. And then when I do a podcast, it's not because I'm clawing. I can do it so confidently where I want to do a podcast again when I don't need when literally we can donate all the money.
Yeah, for sure.
Like all the money just goes straight to like homeless youth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like just, because I'm making so much money outside. Like that was one of the reasons I got rid of the Patreon yesterday.
Yep.
I thanked everyone, and I was like, I would literally be dead without you. Like even when it was making $400 a month, that fed me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you know, a lot of them were like, don't get rid of it. Like, you know, we'll still pay even if you're not posting. And I'm just like, this is like, it's for me. I mean, it's for them because I also felt like I was ripping them off. But it's like, it's for me to like pave this new way. And
it's a huge faith move. Can I just...
Oh, yeah, I guess that is.
It's a huge faith move, bro.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
You're literally making room for God to do something else. And you're saying, hey, I'm not even... You know how many people would depend, like...
Bro.
That's going to stay, and I'm going to do... Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if people are paying me this money, why don't I just take it?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that actually, that's very cool.
It's a huge faith move, bro, and I commend you on it.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to talk to you for 5 more hours.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I can't because
I have a flight.
You have a flight, and
we have to film a sketch maybe.
And we have to film a sketch.
Yeah.
And I got to share something with you that might throw a monkey wrench in everything you've just said for the last 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
And we can only do that offline.
Oh, great.
So
good.
we got to wrap up the pod or everybody's going to know what the heck's I'm talking about.
You know what, long story short, guys, go subscribe to my Patreon.
It's back up.
It's back up, baby. Yeah, give me my phone.
It was a 36-hour reprieve.
Yeah.
We're back stronger than ever.
Let's go.
Man, I now have a new brother for life.
That's how I feel.
Thank you, bro.
I felt that before I came in here. Like there was no, you know, you have been a huge part. The first episode I watched of yours was, and then I took a break once I knew I was going to come on the show.
Yeah.
Was his name Joshua Broom?
Yeah, absolutely. Ex-porn star.
Yep. And I went from this is so helpful to immediately bitter and being like, so that guy, I have one affair. I get in so much trouble. I can't work. And now he's got to fuck all those people. And now he has a beautiful family. And he's just like accepted by the church right away. And I'm like nervous to go to my church, let alone do I think I'm ever going to be invited to speak at churches. And then I was like, I see what you're doing, Jamie. Let's watch this again. Yep. And it was, and then I dug into more of your stuff. And I was like, you know, it's funny that even with something as pure as Jesus or ministry or whatever, all those human emotions
for sure,
jealousy and this isn't fair and I'll never. I did the exact same thing that I would have done to comics.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah,
and then I have never. I mean, I've done some of the biggest podcasts in the world this year. Like in the last couple of months, I've done some of the biggest podcasts in the world. I've never submitted a fan form to get on a podcast. And I literally from my phone, and also your guys' website, if it's on the phone, it goes so horizontal that you can't go back to like edit. So I just some unspell checked, unhinged rant where I'm like, I was divorced and I knew Richard Dawkins and God is good and I just think we'd be friends. And then somehow he was just like, yeah, all right, what this guy's either gonna, if I don't respond to him, this is not gonna go. So he finds me on Instagram. We become friends. And like, it was one of those things where this show has been so important to me. You've been so important to me, but also, and it has a big audience. Just, there were no nerves. It was just like, oh, finally we can be friends. Like we're supposed to be friends.
That's dope, bro.
Like that's it. So yeah, I totally feel the same way. What you're doing is so important. Yeah, this rules. I'm very curious to what you're going to say. Oh, guys, follow me on Instagram.
Please follow.
At the Jamie Kilstein on Instagram.
Please follow this man.
And you can send me more Christian stuff too. I'm like pretty good about DM. I mean, sometimes my DMs get swamped, but yeah. And if this helped you at all, send people the episode. If you think it'll help one of your secular friends, send them this episode. And yeah.
You represent everything I feel like God called me to do with the basement.
That's awesome.
You really do. And I love you so much.
I love you too, brother.
And I'm so grateful that we're connected.
Yep.
And I know this was a blessing to you all as well. And whether you feel far from God, very, very near to God, whether you're one of our atheist dwellers that is like, I just rock with Tim because he's not one of them other Christians, but you're like, I still don't believe in God, but damn it, Jamie.
Yeah.
damn you, Jamie, you over here making me think about stuff that I don't even want to think about.
Listen, I can factually say Tim is much nicer than Richard Dawkins. If that helps, it's a fact. Way better hang. Way better hang, you guys.
So there you have it. I cannot wait. You got to come back
Anytime.
sooner than later.
Literally, yep. Look,
Sooner than later.
let's just set it up.
Okay, we will.
Yeah, if I have to drive down here, I'll drive down here. Easy.
No. We got you. Okay. So I love you guys. Until next time. Peace.